Hello, very good morning to you. You're welcome to The Big Issue. The Big Issue is a platform for incisive analysis and riveting conversation. My name is Salom Adunu. This morning, we are live and interactive, and as always, you can join the discussion via our WhatsApp number 0549 986 996 0549 986 996, and we'll be happy to share your views with the rest of the world. We have a humanitarian crisis on our hands, a crisis occasioned by the unprecedented spillage of the Akosombo Dam. We understand over 20,000 people have been displaced from their homes and are currently living with friends and family, and most of them are also living in safe havens or places prepared for them by the disaster management organization and other philanthropies. This is a crisis of a massive scale, one never seen before in our history, that the spillage of a dam is displaced so many people. What have we done so far in terms of relief efforts to these people? What are the costs? What are the health costs, the social costs, and others? Indeed, we understand that the water, which has been stagnated in some parts of the affected communities, are beginning to generate very, repugnant smells, and that in itself is a major problem. They have become breeding ground for mosquitoes. And what that means is that we may have a huge malaria, situation on our hands in the next few weeks. Are we ready? Are we prepared? What has been the efforts by state actors? Would we say that the spillage of the dam was done in a negligent fashion that has let a lot of people down and causing havoc and disruption to the lives of people? What has the real response of the state been? Indeed, the government has set up a huge committee made up of top cabinet ministers chaired by the chief of staff, supposed to produce some guidelines and a strategy to help deal with the crisis. So far, what has been heard from that committee, we understand they've been at a retreat thinking through the solutions. We hope to hear from them soon. There are many people also in hard-to-reach areas who cannot be found. We understand many of those areas have been cut off. Their bridges have been cut off or destroyed by the flooding, by the floods or by the waters, that nobody can really reach them. Here at Citi FM, Citi TV, we have we are putting together our own humanitarian efforts to get to some of those areas. And as we speak, a huge team of managers and staff of the station with volunteers are on their way to those areas to help them with relief items donated to us by listeners and viewers of the station. We are so grateful to our listeners and viewers for the kind gesture and for responding to the call to help our fellow countrymen and women in those areas in difficulties. So we'll look at all of that today and see what we can be doing as a people to help the situation. There's also been a call for a state of emergency to be declared. We've not really heard much about that. The Constitution makes room for state of emergency to be declared in situations like this. Why haven't we heard anything? Is it part of the options or measures on the table being discussed at the retreat, we are told? We will look at all of that. Also, at the second segment of the program, we'll look at the matter of the National Cathedral. It never goes away. This week, two top pastors, two leaders of the charismatic movement in Ghana, the Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams and Reverend Eastwood Anaba, resigned from the Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral. This came after a January letter they sent to the board and the president asking for some audit to be done. It appears that they are not satisfied with the progress of work on that audit. Indeed, they did say that they've not heard anything about the audit. The National Cathedral, came back strong with a repost describing the basis of the resignation of the two respected men of God as being false. They say that the two men of God know or ought to have known that there's been an audit process, begun, and that audit is being carried out by Deloitte. They say that indeed the audit findings or report should have been ready by July, but due to circumstances beyond the control of the auditors, that report is yet to be made available. So they could not say that the call for audit has not been heeded to. Well, we'll look at all of that. Now, some people, including the former General Secretary of the Ghana Christian Council, Reverend Opuni Frimpong, says that the church must take up the the construction of the National Cathedral. Indeed, they said they were told by the president, and we were all told by the president, that the church was going to construct it and that the state was only going to provide seed money, land, and a few other things. But it does appear that the state itself was actively the one building the cathedral. He said that was not what they were told. So we must go back to basics, leave the thing to the churches, let the churches raise funds to build it, like what happened in Nigeria. Is that a viable proposition? Are we not tired of the construction of the National Cathedral? But do we also leave that prime area in our capital just that way, as in the big hole it is and all that money that's been sunk in there? What must be the way forward? I'll take a short break. I'll return, provide some updates, introduce my guest, and we'll get a discussion underway. Once again, this is The Big Issue. You are welcome. You're welcome back to The Big Issue. We are live on 97.3 Citi FM. We're also live on Facebook. This morning we are looking at two things: the humanitarian crisis we have in the Lower Volta and Lower Volta region, also some parts of the Eastern region and even the Greater Accra region, because areas like Adan, Asuchari, etc. have also been affected. We will later look at the matter of the National Cathedral too and see what options we have. Must we keep sinking state money in there, or the state should just leave it for the churches to construct, as we were told earlier? What then happens to the space there? Very prime area, now known as the biggest hole or expensive hole in Ghana. Do we leave it that way, or we must ensure that that edifice is built? How will we build it? How will we raise the money? Do we have the money for that? All right, we'll look at all of that in the course of the show. Now, over 26,000 people have been displaced following the spillage of the Akosombo Dam. The Volta River Authority commenced controlled water spillage from the dam, from the Akosombo and Kwon dams on September 15, 2023, due to a consistent rise in the inflow pattern and water level of the Akosombo Reservoir. Thousands of residents in South Tong, North Tong, Central Tong, Esojama, and several other areas have had their homes submerged due to the spillage. At least 25% of the town of Mefe in the Volta region now lies submerged beneath the relentless waters. This situation has caused health officials to raise concerns about the possible outbreak of waterborne diseases. There is more in the following report.
Due to the huge volumes of water being discharged by the Volta River Authority from the Akosombo Dam and the Kwon station, a number of people have been affected, and this has to do with about 8 districts within the Akosombo area down to Southern Volta. We can talk of the Asojaman district, talk of the North Tong district, Central Tong, South Tong, and it goes as far as Keta and Angloga districts. Now, within the Mefe, to be precise, in the North Tong districts, over 5,000 people have been displaced, and they've been relocated to the institutions from the St. Kizito Secondary School, where a number of displaced victims are taking shelter at the moment, and a number of them are yet to have their breakfast. Let's now take a look at where they are sleeping and to see the manner in which they are able to cope with the situation. Now, I see their mattresses here. I see their personal belongings, their effects over here. I see mosquito nets. And I am told about 53 people are sleeping in this room. We see some sachet water also being shared to them. The river, we understand, is contaminated as of now. I see the Deputy Minister of Information trying to engage with some of the affected victims, and probably she can tell us what her interaction has been with the people so far.
We from the executive are focusing on how the adverse effect of the spillage can be mitigated. So in terms of evacuation to safety, in terms of monitoring to see what other challenges are there, and also providing relief efforts. As you are aware, we just went to check the temporary clinic that have been set up here so that when people are sick or injured, they can be attended to. And the brief that I have from NADMO is that they are also trying to set up a makeshift toilet facility.
To what extent can government stretch to extend help?
Well, I believe that whatever help that government has to give to restore people back to where they were prior to the flooding is what has to be done. But it will interest you to note that maybe this is not the time to talk about some of these matters. But clearly, most of the communities that have been impacted really are not supposed to be where they are.
Where were you before this whole water caught up with you?
I stay with my mother's house at Mepe before the water or the river enter the houses. So there's nothing I can do. So they just carried me and brought it at the Kizito school here.
So in effect, you can't really walk?
Sure, I can walk.
So how many days have you been here now?
5 days.
What kind of relief items were brought to you people in these 5 days?
Actually, they brought 5 kg of rice for about 53 people. And 1 oil, and sandy, 3 toilet roll, 3 soap, and 1 bucket, and 1 bowl. That's what they are giving it.
For the 5 days?
Yes, sir.
So aside that, 53 people managing that, how are you coping?
Oh, we are not okay. But actually, we can't put our mind for that disaster. Actually, you can go to the market and find for your food, like how you are in your house. So we are waiting. If anything comes, we can take it. If it didn't come out, you use your local food.
What do you need as a person?
Right now, I'm suffering. I need a bed and a pillow and a wheelchair and the stick. If maybe I starting walking, I can use the stick.
That is one of the victims there.
Now, President Akufo-Addo, who was in Mefe in the North Ton district of the Volta region to assess the level of devastation, says government will in the interim liaise with the National Disaster Management Organization and the District Assembly to find an immediate solution to the suffering of the people. Nana Akufo-Addo says the interministerial committee set up to coordinate relief items will respond shortly.
The committee is working in several phases. One, immediate relief, and then tomorrow. But I want you to know that the government is going to do everything in its powers to assist to make sure that things are all right. I came here because Ghanaians are having difficulties and are suffering. And it is my responsibility to try and help. Because if it's a question of counting who votes for me and who doesn't vote for me, I shouldn't be here, because you don't vote for me. But that is not my concern. And in any event, one day you will vote for me and my party.
The chief of Mefe, Togbe Kosi-Nego, appealed to President Akufo-Addo to come to their aid.
All I'm saying is we are very happy that you are here with us today. We heard of your travel to America, and you came last night, but managed to be here with us, to sympathize and support us. And we are very grateful. We know other places have been affected too, but you managed to come here and visit us. We have so many challenges which we have already passed on to you. We are hoping and praying that you do what you can to address all our grievances, concerns, and our needs, so that after this flood, it will not happen again.
The truck containing the relief items that Citi FM and Citi TV mobilized has just arrived here at the center, the school which is serving as a center for these displaced persons, and the group is waiting, anticipating eagerly for the arrival of these goods.
These were made possible through donations and contributions by viewers and listeners of Citi FM and Citi TV. The General Manager of Citi FM and Citi TV, Bernard Avle, presenting the relief items to the victims, called on other benevolent people and organizations to support the station's cause to bring relief to other affected persons.
HR, if you can tell us exactly what we brought, so that we'll say it, so that they know. What did we bring?
Okay, so we brought some cooking pots.
Cooking pots.
Cooking pots.
Yeah, it's cooking pots.
Cooking pots. Coal pots. Bags of rice. Sanitary pads. Detergents. Bags of gari. Toilet rolls. Toothbrushes. Mosquito coils. Mosquito nets. Hot chocolate drinks. And a lot more. Yes. Mattresses. Bread from Bread Boutique. Mats so that the kids can lie on.
The assembly member for the area expressed gratitude to the viewers and listeners of Citi FM and Citi TV for the help offered them.
TV, we said thank you very much for all that you are doing for us. We will not forget you in our life. So we will pray for you that your work should go on so that you will get more and help us. And then we are appealing for all those who in any diverse way and they help us in any way. We thank everybody that we are here yet still in their hand. Any help at all that they get, they can still come on and help us.
All right, so you heard and saw a series of reports put together by our team. The last one was the recce mission we carried out earlier in the week. I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, where we went to distribute the first batch of relief items that you donated to the people through us. And today, as I indicated earlier, there's a huge team made up of management and staff of the station and a number of volunteers who are currently on their way to the affected communities and to donate the relief items, quite a number of items, to the victims of the flood. So we are still receiving those items. If you are interested in helping the people there, kindly donate to us, and then we'll make sure they get them. We are serving as a rallying point for this particular exercise. So you can bring it, anything you have, to Citi FM or Citi TV at Adabraka behind the police station, or at Tesano, and then we'll be happy to put them together, and then later in the week get them to their people. All right, so to help us with the discussion this morning, Edem Agbana, a former Deputy National Youth Organizer of the NDC and parliamentary candidate for Ketu North. I also have Kofi Tonto, who is a member of the communications team of the ruling New Patriotic Party. Professor Martin Otin Ababio is a former head, Geography Department at the University of Ghana. George Aisi is the Director of Communications of NADMO. And then Selom Brantier, my namesake, Vice President, Imani Africa. Gentlemen, you are welcome to the program. I start off with you, Kofi. This is a very difficult situation. How have you been impacted by this generally, and what has been your thinking around it so far?
All right, Salam. A very good morning to you, and then to my brother Edem Agbana. I haven't seen him in a long time. And then I also heard Selom Brantier on the line, and then George Aisi, and then Prof. I say a very good morning to them as well. I think this issue affects all of us, irrespective of where you come from. It affects you. Because you see, even our food basket comes from various parts of the country. Ghana has become an interconnected country where people are married into different tribes and different places. So aside from food, aside from energy, even in our cultural way of life, we are connected in so many ways. I always say that right now when you meet a Ghanaian, you'll be surprised that the person may come from maybe 3 or 4 different backgrounds. I have a friend who is half Ghana, half Ewe, half Asante, half Fanti. You know, so these things affect all of us. You may not even know a family member or a friend or other relatives who are connected in one way or the other. And so it's a national problem, and it must be treated as a national problem. And so first and foremost, I think we have to sincerely sympathize with the people of the Volta region. But I must say, Salam, that this issue goes beyond the Volta region. For example, parts of Greater Accra, parts of Eastern region, and then that's on the downstream side, the spillage, people who were affected directly by the spillage. And then the effects, the indirect effects, go all the way to Pru East in the Bono region, and then Savannah in the Mankrago area. I was actually in Savannah just a few days ago, and I was told that they have been affected as well. And then the Pru East have been affected as well. So it's not just what we are even witnessing on TV. There are other parts of the country where we get our food, our families, etc. from, who have equally been affected. So I join everybody in saying that we must, as a nation, come together to resolve this issue. But in every instance, you know, there are those who are affected the most. And it looks like the people of Mepe, as an example, have been severely affected. And that explains why more attention has been brought forth on them. And so we must necessarily do everything we can to ensure that they are brought out of the woods in terms of this issue. I know NADMO is working. They recently just had an engagement with the United Nations to get more supplies. I know VRA is providing supplies, and thanks to Citi TV and even your other sister stations who are equally mobilizing resources. Even when it comes to the Vice President has done same, part of our brothers in the NDC. I know some of the MPs in the region have equally mobilized resources to support. And so in addition to the government support, you've seen support coming throughout the nation to make sure that we bring relief to the affected people. I think we ought to do more. I've seen people making suggestions around making it a national disaster and other comments. I think as a government, it is important that we take all these suggestions in good faith and analyze them and see what we can do to ensure that we bring relief to the people. Bottom line, and I heard you, I think it was an interview with my colleague Ejapa Mesa, the Deputy Minister of Energy, saying that whatever resources is going to take, we have to bring it out to support the people. Because after all, what are we all living for? Whatever resources that we have is to care for the people. So even if it means that going into our coffers to take some of the resources earmarked for other programs to support the people of Mepe, I think we have to do it. And not just Mepe, but all the affected areas. We have to do it. But I'm also glad that the Minister of Agric, through the government, has earmarked $40 million to support farmers in the area. And I heard him being interviewed, and he said they can only release the funds once they've sort of had a full understanding of the farmers affected, etc. And once the water recedes, and they can do a full assessment. But what it is that government has committed $40 million from a soft loan we procured from the World Bank for a food program. We are rediverting $40 million specifically to help farmers in these affected communities come back to where they were. So I think generally this is what I would say. I'm just praying that the rains will subside and that we won't see more rains coming, because I heard the engineers and the professionals saying that if we are to see more rains, it's going to be quite devastating. Because so far, if you look at the spillage release documents, they started from 20,000 cubic feet per second, and now it's gone to 180,000. And we can imagine if it is to continue. And then I even heard him saying that they have to control it, because at a point they were afraid that if they go beyond the 180, it can literally wipe away the Sogakope Bridge and other important monuments in the area as well. And then if we don't do the control spillage, the effects can go as far back as Tema and wipe out everything there. So I think we all have to be prayerful. I don't know what it is, but hopefully that we don't see more rains and that things will subside. Fortunately, we are entering November, so we are hoping that the rains will subside and that we won't see any.
But the GMET, I mean, Ghana, the Meteo Agency is telling us that we'll get more rains, even, I mean, at least in the lower part or the southern part of the country. But that may not impact so much on the downstream. But the areas down there will suffer, because ordinarily, even without the spillage of the dam, if you have rains in such huge volumes, the place is flooded anyway. And now, coupling this with the spillage, that would be quite devastating for the people. But that's what they have said.
So let's just hope. And then lastly, I think this also calls for a mitigation strategy, long-term mitigation strategy. If you look at the occurrence timeline, the last time this occurred close to this magnitude was in 2010. Prior to that, we had it in preceding years, and then I think the last time we had a major one was when the dam was actually being built. But the last time we had anything close to what we are experiencing is in 2010. The question is, what was the strategy we put in place as a nation when it occurred in 2010? That's 13 years ago. So in addition to everything we are doing to make sure we bring life back to the people who have been affected, I think the bigger question, Selam, is we need to assemble a team of engineers to look at the solution forward. What can we do differently? I mean, are there engineering solutions? Or is it a case of relocation? Whatever it is, we need the experts to really come together. Let's resource them, give them 6 months to a year to come up with cogent solutions, even if it means bringing outside support to make sure we really look at every facet of the issue and come up with a permanent solution so we don't see the reoccurrence of this unfortunate circumstance.
Very well.
Yeah.
Adam, I'm sure you have, I don't know if you visited the area,
Yes,
but some of your colleagues have visited the place and they've seen the situation firsthand. You come from the region. I don't know whether the devastation has reached your constituency, the Ketu North yet, I'm not sure. But obviously areas like Anglo, we understand, are also facing some difficulty and all of that. What did you see when you went there?
Good morning, Salom, and good morning to my brother Kofi. Like Kofi rightly said, it's been a while we met on set because I was away in the constituency working on a few things in preparations towards the 2024 general elections. And so let me say good morning to all our viewers and listeners, especially people in the Ketu North constituency, and to all Ghanaians. Salom, I visited Mepe and some of the affected communities at least twice, and I must say that the situation is even more heartbreaking than the media reports. I had the opportunity to sit on a boat and being taken across the affected communities on the boat, and in some of the places, especially in Mepe, you see completely houses submerged, churches, schools, and other properties. The people have been left with nothing. I recall meeting a lady who said she is a teacher. She had left for school in a nearby community. By the time when she was called that the place has started flooding, by the time she got home, she couldn't even take anything out of the place. And so I met her on a Sunday, and according to her, that was her 4th day outside, and she was still in the same dress that she was in at the time she left and all of that. And so the situation is very worrying, that over 26,000 people have been affected. And when I visited these areas, I think that I want to support a cause for a state of emergency to be declared, because it's actually a humanitarian crisis. I don't know whether in the last decade or two, or even since independence, we have suffered any devastation to this magnitude. And so I think that when you go there and you experience at first hand what the people are going through, Salom, we may not be giving the situation the attention that it deserves. I think that a lot more needs to be done. Look, when you visit the affected communities, the first thing is that the entire community, the livelihood of the people have been affected. And so they are there. Some benevolent organizations, some individuals are coming to donate and all of that, like Citi FM, Citi TV is doing this morning. But beyond the donations for the immediate survival, they don't even have an idea, one, how soon the situation will be over for them to get their lives back to normalcy. And so no communication about the next step, what has happened, why we are where we are, and all of that has happened. And that is why I think that government, yes, some of the government institutions are doing their best to provide for the people at this moment. But in terms of the general response to the crisis, we have not seen a well-coordinated response. Now, here is and this is the reason why I'm saying this. One, Salom, you have a disaster, a man-made disaster. The spillage, this is not the first time that there's a spillage from the Akosombo Dam, like Kofi said. Right from the 1960s, we have seen water being spilled from the dam because we want to prevent a situation where there will be overtopping, a collapse of the dam. Because when the dam collapses, half of Ghana is gone.
The situation will be worse.
The situation will be worse. Half of Ghana will be gone. And it will also be a national security issue because most parts of the country will not have electricity. So when you are spilling the water, nobody is faulting the VRA for spilling water to prevent the collapse of the dam. But the approach, how it is done, is where some of us have an issue. One, we have engineers and technical people who clearly were monitoring the situation and decided or took the decision to have the water spilled or to have the spillage done. First question, how consultative was the process or engagement with the communities? The MPs involved, the assembly members, the MCs or DCs of these affected districts, the chiefs and people, were they informed properly? And even about the implications of the spillage, were they informed? And the answer is no. When you engage the local authorities, you engage the MPs, and even the DCs, the VRA failed to give accurate information about the volume of water that they were going to spill out and the possible implications on such communities. And so at that moment, I think that the VRA has some questions to answer as to the engagement process prior to the spilling of the water. Secondly, all these years that we have Akosombo Dam, and we have experienced spillage up to, on many occasions. The last time we had one closer to this magnitude was in 2010, we are told. From 2010, or even before then, till now, what has been the thinking of the VRA in putting a strategy in place to ensure that such a day, what we are experiencing today, never occurred? Because I know for a fact that at the time the Akosombo Dam was built in the 60s, there was a plan to have a phase 2, which was supposed to provide a reservoir, such that whenever there's too much inflows into the main dam, that other phase 2 would have been the reservoir to receive the excess water. Because there have also been times where we had the water below the limit or the level that is needed to power the electricity. So that reservoir would have been a plan B, so it holds excess water. So whenever there is a need to increase the water volumes in the main dam, the reservoir or the phase 2 project would have been the one to support or provide that. And that hasn't been done all these years, all these decades. Secondly, we have a situation where even in the Volta region, Eastern region, Greater Accra region, communities very, very close to these affected areas, many of these communities are engaged in farming. Many of them depend on the natural rain for their farming seasons. On many occasions, Salom, many farms have been destroyed because of bad rainfall patterns. As leaders, we ought to have put in place a measure where some of this excess water will be channeled into a nationwide irrigation project, so that whenever the spilling is being done, this water is going into pipelines that will be used to increase our agricultural production. But again, leadership has failed all these years, and we have all failed to talk about some of these things. And so you live in communities very close to the water, and yet farm produce is being affected, or the quantity and quality of what you are producing is being affected because you don't even have water to provide irrigation for the farms. And nobody has spoken about how well we can have pipes laid so that some of this excess water can be channeled. And it's not only in the Volta region. Yearly, we have had a situation, or we've had to deal with the Bagri Dam spillage. And the communities around that place in the northern region, how badly they get affected whenever this dam is spilled. Until today, nobody is thinking about the solution. When it comes, we discuss it, it becomes a 9-day wonder, and then when the water levels go down, everything gets back to normal, life gets back to normal, and nobody is speaking about these things. But more importantly, Selom, I think that government is delaying in declaring a state of emergency.
We'll get to the state of the emergency a bit later. Let me speak to Professor Martin Otin Abebiu, former head, Geography Department, University of Ghana. Prof, welcome to the program. Are we handling this situation well? I mean, the people have been displaced. We've managed to get them into some areas, you know, highlands. Okay, I understand Prof is not on yet. Let me speak to my colleague or my friend George AEC, Director of Communications at NADMO. Hi, George. Welcome to the program. I don't know how involved you were in the initial engagement with the people, if there was any engagement at all. We understand there was some simulation exercise in May to try to simulate a situation like this. I don't know what was seen in that simulation exercise. I don't know what was learned in that simulation exercise. I don't know how much of what was learned is being implemented now. Were you, as NADMO, part of this simulation exercise, and what lessons did we get from there to help the situation as we have it today?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning to you and your viewers. Yes, NADMO has been part of the process from the get-go. We set up a team joint between NADMO and VRE from March. You know, from March of this year, the technical engagement between NADMO and VRE, you know, they have emergency preparedness plan. And so the simulation is a part to test that emergency preparedness plan. And so we agreed in May, we had that simulation exercise. And the simulation exercise engaged all the people in the 9 districts. In fact, we even extended it to Pando, so that they were on standby in case there's any spillover. Maybe Pando will have the effect. So Pando District Assembly was also roped in. I was surprised to hear the Honorable MP saying, you know, there was no engagement. The assemblies, all DCs, all major stakeholders in the communities were there. We went in there, and then, you know, we engaged them. We carried out in the simulation is to say, in the event that the situation occurs, A, B, C, D are the things we need to do. And so we took some even to Citi, to other places as evacuation centers, and demonstrated what ought to be done. And that was the situation. So we extensively involved them. And after the simulation exercise, which lasted for 1 week, most media houses were there. Citi was part of the team. Other media houses, we took you to Akosombo, we took you to Mefa, we took you to Ada, and the other places. There, we were doing concurrent simulation, correspondence, and co. We set up the EOC at Akosombo. And so I'm surprised people say nobody was notified. I thought with the code name of the simulation exercise was exercise down also, okay? Be on guard, okay, in the event that was that spillage. These are the consequences downstream. And so that was the engagement we did, and we got everybody involved. After the 1 week simulation exercise, our men were deployed to continuously engage people. VRA had identified inundated zones, okay? So people in those areas, in case of a spillage, these are the things that are going to happen. All these things were put out to the people. Okay, and I believe it's part of that exercise that has stopped us not to record any fatality as of now. Okay, and so that is the situation that we are looking at. And I want to say that people were aware, but they didn't believe the spillage was going to be done, because in 2022, a VRA had indicated there was going to be spillage, but it didn't happen. Okay, looking at the rate of rise of the dam level, they had anticipated a spillage in 2022, but it didn't happen. So the people were put on standby or aware, and it didn't happen. So they thought, so last year you came to tell us that, and nothing happened. And since 2010, you know, 2010, even you said there was spillage, yes, there was spillage, but it didn't inundate us in any way. So it's
but George, I mean,
that was the task and co.
George, you are trained to appreciate disasters and how things like this happen. There's a reason why you have the force of state. If the state feels that, of course, 2010 happened, it wasn't very serious, you said 2022 there was supposed to have been spillage, there was no spillage, and so the people took it for granted. Of course, that's what you are saying. Information we have points to something else. But assuming without admitting that what you're saying is right, what is the essence of you having the force of state? The people must move. We should have seen real effort of you and similar agencies trying to move them from the places. If it will even require force or some push to get them, it's not enough to say that we told them to move, they were there, and etc., etc. The result of what we are seeing is what we are seeing is as a result of your inability, maybe not just you, inability of the system to move the people from where they have to be to somewhere else. And even if you told them to move, where are they going to move to? Are you telling me that you prepared places for them to move to? It's not enough to just tell them move. Move and go where? If you had prepared for them a place, then you can tell us what you're saying now, that you asked them to move so they had a place to go to. Nothing happened weeks before we started putting safe havens in place, closing down schools, using classrooms for people to live. So you can't tell me that I asked them to move. Move and go where? Especially as you were saying that 2022 there was no spillage, even though there was information that there will be spillage, etc. They'll treat it as not a serious thing because you yourselves had not demonstrated seriousness by getting them safe havens to go to if you ask them to move. That is the point we are making.
Yeah, Solomon, I don't know whether I said anywhere that we've asked anybody to move anywhere. We said we conscientized them, and we said in the event of the spillage, they were to move, yes. But that time, as you know, we don't have any national evacuation center. We don't. So we use makeshift or temporary structures, like you said, school blocks, churches, community centers, and maybe school fields where tents are raised and other things. Yes, that is what we do. And even when the spillage started, around 15th of September, gradual 1,000 cubic liters per second, moved to 5,000, and then now over 6,000 cubic liters per second, which is inundating the place. Yes, ordinarily as a nation, we should, if we have evacuation centers, we will compel all of them to move to the place the moment the spillage began, okay? But there's no evacuation center. We make identified places and then we put them in. That is where we put them in now. Even when it started and inundation started, some women, children, husbands were ready to let them move. They were trying to protect their property. So we had to even force some of them to move out. Okay, these are the type realities. But yes, we admit, because there's no national evacuation center, you couldn't have said, okay, we are moving you from A to point B. Yeah, but we identified places that in the event of situation, these are the places we move them to. And as of now, we have moved them to over 20 places that they are putting up so far. So I agree, but the information, engagement, sensitization was intense in all the 9 districts.
Very well. Let me speak to Salom Branty, Vice President of Imani, just before I take my first break. Salom, welcome to the program. You've seen the pictures, you've read the stories, you've listened to people who have been affected, you've listened to duty bearers, etc. What's your assessment of the situation so far, the devastation and the efforts being made so far?
Well, good morning to everyone. I think that, like everybody else, this is really a very, very sad eventuality that has happened. If you look at the history of the events up to this point, you would see that there has been a bit of poor communication between agencies like NADMO and the VRA, as well as the MMD, the district agencies on the ground. It is, from what I do understand, the spillages started somewhere in September and they were controlled spillages. But at a point, one of the things that a lot of people have overlooked is the data. If the spillages started and they were around less than 8,000 cubic feet, is it per second or per day?
20,000. Started 20,000.
I understand it started with 20,000 cubic feet per second.
In September
per
15.
second.
On
Good.
September 15, yes.
So 20,000 cubic feet per second, so that we would maintain the dam level at the 270 to 277 range, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you are doing these things consistently from September, every week, it means that what is coming down is adding to the normal flow out of the dam from the hydroelectric activity. So it means that there is some percentage increase in the flow that is coming downstream. And we also have to realize that even downstream, there are other tributaries and other water sources that will then go straight to the river before it gets to the sea. So consistently, that steady increase, and you know, most of us, we are not fluid mechanics experts, but we all know that when water starts, it looks, well, when water volume increases, it looks deceptive, because you just see it moving, but you don't see the amount or the gravity to which it is moving so fast. But then when you now suddenly move it from the 20,000 to 100 and even to 100,000, you are talking about a 5 times increase, right? And data from previous spillage exercises should have then instructed that if we are doing it at this rate, then before we even before the water even gets to these communities, there should have been a compulsory evacuation exercise, because I am sure, and I've been looking at some kind of data online. Let
me provide you some data from the VRE as we have it. So 15 September, 20,000 feet
cubic feet per second.
20,000 cubic feet per second was spilled. 24th. So 20,000 till 24th, 50,000 cubic feet per second. And October 6 to October 9 increased to 70,000 to 90,000 cubic feet per second. October 10, 110,000 cubic feet per second. And from October 11 to about now, I think, 183,000 to 185,000 cubic feet per second.
That's so if you look at it like that, it is almost like you are getting constant rainfall for about 8 hours in a day, continuous, coming to that place. At a certain point, it was very clear that you would look at the geological data and say that, okay, all these people around Mepe, Adidome, the Bato, Tongu area are going to be affected. So everybody should move. And then even downstream, see, everybody is just talking about the Volta area, forgetting that even people around Ada and the rest have been affected. Overall, I think we are underestimating the quantum of the damage it has caused from those who have been doing fish farming, and then the supply of freshwater protein, those who rely on that value chain, for example. I know a lot of people who have lost their fish farms because the tilapia fish and the
so on that tilapia note, Salom, let me kindly keep your thoughts there. I'll come back to you after a short break. Then you continue from the tilapia point and help us understand how that has affected that ecosystem. This is the big issue, 97.3 Citi FM. I take a short break, return with more. We are looking at the matter of the Akosombo dam spillage and the humanitarian crisis it has occasioned. Don't go away. You're welcome back to the big issue, 97.3 Citi FM. A very big welcome to our TV guests as well. We're live on social media, and we're looking at 2 major issues this morning. We're looking at the humanitarian crisis occasioned by the spillage of the Akosombo dam. We understand some 26,000 people have been displaced since the spillage started on September 15, where 20,000 cubic feet per second of water was spilled, which has risen gradually to about 185,000 cubic feet per second on October 11. And so that's a huge jump, and that means that the area really could not contain the water that was being spilled. That has actually led to the displacement of this number of people. There's been some safe havens created for these people, schools, etc., higher grounds. And so what has become critical now is how those people will survive, feed. And so we are mobilizing relief efforts to them. Government is trying its best. NADMO, etc., are putting in their effort. Other private entities, Citi FM, and its viewers and listeners, Citi TV, are also doing a lot of that as I speak. There's a team of volunteers with staff and management of the station on its way to the affected communities with tons and tons and tons of relief items you have donated for this cause. And we are so grateful for that. So we are discussing generally why the situation has had to happen this way, whether it could have been better, any responsibility that have to be taken by somebody, what we can do about it in the future, what the disruption has caused the people in the area. We understand the people in the tilapia business, etc. As Selon Branty was saying before we went for that break, how to lose their businesses and all of that. We will, in the next few minutes, deal with the health cost of it. We'll be joined by the Deputy Director of Health Services in the area to help us appreciate the health issues that have arisen or may likely arise, and then we'll take it up from there as well. We'll also look at the matter of the National Cathedral. Two key members of the Board of Trustees have resigned, Reverend Sudanaba and Archbishop Duncan Williams. And if you belong to the charismatic movement in Ghana, or the charismatic church in Ghana, you realize that these are two heavyweights. Earlier, two other heavyweights from the charismatic movement had resigned. Mensa Otabil of ICGC and Bishop Dag Heward Mills of the Lighthouse Churches. These are very huge figures who have left the National Cathedral Board of Trustees. Dr. Puni Frimpong, former chairman of or secretary of the Christian Council of Ghana, says that they were told from the beginning that the church was going to fund the project and that government was to give seed money and land and give the secretariat. But it does appear now that government itself was building the project. And so he thinks that given all the controversies, government should leave the project to the church and the church will raise money to build it. Well, we'll look at that in the second segment of the program. Our guest, Edem Agbana, former Deputy National Youth Organizer of the NDC and parliamentary candidate for the party in the Ketu North constituency. Selom Branty, Vice President Imani Africa. Kofi Tonto, member of the ruling party's communication team. George IC, Director of Communications, NADMO, and Professor Martin Otina Bebiu. These are my guests. Before the break, Selom, you're making a point about what is happening to the people in the tilapia business and what that means to life in those communities.
Yeah, so it's not even just the tilapia business.
Small information.
Say that, sorry, Selom, just hold on for me. George, you were making a point. Were you saying something?
Yes, the number has been revised as of this morning, officially 31,000.
31,000, not 26,000, as we knew the day before. So 31,000, the number is gone up. Very good. All right, Selom, make your point.
Yeah, I mean, because if you look at the data, the 26,000 that we are seeing is probably
now 31,000, as George is telling us.
Because you are talking, if you look at even the maps, and even if you look at where Mepe and Sogakope are, they are kind of like the river meanders at that point. So it kind of hits the water will come from like two different streams or two different tributaries and hit the place. And what it means is that you are looking at a huge amount of farmland, a huge amount of not even just the towns, but actually a lot of farmland around the river, all the way down to Ada, or to the estuary. So you are looking at a situation where we are having a looming catastrophic crisis, because apart from the fact that the water will pass and it has to subside, we now have to look at how people are going to feed themselves in this area over the next even 1 or 2 years, because some of the damage will be such that you are not going to have people be able to cultivate their farms for the next year because of so many different reasons. Already, there has been a lot of studies that have said that ecologically, a lot of the land adjoining the river has become it's not as fertile as it used to be, or people have had to move to less fertile land. And these are indigenous of the area. So if you look at it right from the top, for where the spillage is happening all the way down, the effect is not something that is going to be solved by just emergency relief today and tomorrow. My issue here has always been that the NADMO, as underfunded as they are, which I know they are, should have been proactive with the VRA in saying that, okay, if you are looking at the data and this is how much you have to spill over the coming days, then the NADMO should have taken the initiative to have actually started a massive public awareness before this incident happened, so that we would have even been able to have had some of these evacuation centers already pre-planned. It is shocking that when we are coming to do exercises like this, we do not build up certain mitigation plans and even appeal to affluent citizens, etc., to come in until the damage has been done. Now you are having a situation where over 31,000 people are affected. Healthcare is going to be affected drastically. Food and sustenance for the next 1 year or 2 years is going to be affected drastically. And even transport, even to these areas, is also going to be hugely affected. All the roads in the area that have been washed away, all of that is going to be affected. And I believe that it is high time that we have a national disaster response strategy, for example, that NADMO should push hard to ensure that there are funds available for such extreme emergencies. Because unfortunately, Dr. Eisi, a lot of people, the public perception of NADMO, for example, is that it is an appendage that only rushes in to give a few blankets when after everybody else has marshaled something to provide. And that kind of image should not be sustained, because natural disasters happen. Whilst this is a human-made dam and it's providing electricity, etc., the cause of all of this is because of increased rainfall into the Volta Basin over a period of time. And we should know that these things will happen. They are cyclical. It's just that within the last 20 or 30 years or so, we have not had such situations happening. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't plan for them, because there are so many people down the line. Because eventually, you and I shouldn't be surprised if the number of people affected won't reach about 100,000. Because, mind you, all this water is going to the estuary, and some of it is even still going to affect areas that are already in trouble, like the Keta area, for example, where geological data shows that some of the water coming to the estuaries are bound to affect the sea defense mechanisms that are existing in Keta, which are already not adequate, which means that you are looking at people's history being lost, people's lives, livelihoods being lost. In fact, whole traditions are going to be lost when things like this happen. And we should also have looked at what were the resettlement activities done in the past, in the late 60s, in the early 70s, when the dam was in full operation, and the lessons learned from it. How did we handle those, and how are we going to handle future resettlements if that is the case? How are we going to liaise with the chiefs and the traditional authorities? And then even begin to look at more sustainable ways of handling this. Because if we don't do that, we are all going to talk, we'll all corral for money to provide relief items. 2 weeks or 3 weeks after, we go on to the next news story, and we forget that the lives of over 100,000 people upstream and downstream have been fully affected, and then nothing is being done to actually touch those individual stories beyond just the token, food and provisions that we offer.
I see. Great one. So, Kofi, we may speak to a health person soon, but sure. Whilst we wait for that, you know, the response the response approach many have said is not been very good from central government itself. I mean, the thing started 15 September. People started complaining before okay, so I understand Dr. Senemi, so I'll come back to you. Yes, so the health implication of this is huge. We understand there will be social costs, even mental health costs generally. Dr. Senanu Jokoto is the Deputy Director of Health Services in the region. We understand he's on his way to some of the centers, and he's graciously agreed to join the discussion on phone to help us appreciate what the health challenges or potential health difficulties that may arise will be. Hello, Doc. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very good morning to you, your viewers and listeners. So as well as your panel.
Yes, grateful that you have joined us. The situation we see, at least from where we are and from pictures and videos we've seen, appear very dire. You are on the ground. Yesterday we heard that the water stagnating in certain parts of the areas, are beginning to generate some very bad smell. And we fear that will also serve, stagnant waters may also serve as breeding grounds for mosquitoes. And we know what that means, a malaria outbreak. We have a malaria situation on our hands. And in a situation where the health structures in those areas are not up to scratch right now because of the crisis, it only leaves us a bit worried. And the fact that the water is swept out, latrines and KVIPs, cemeteries, etc. That is a very bad situation, and that is where people live, and that is where that is the water some of the people use. What are we likely to see in terms of danger, health-wise, in the next few days, and how do we hope to address those?
Thank you very much. My apologies for not being able to join in studio via Zoom. You painted the picture accurately. We are not in a very good place at this moment, especially with the displaced population, 31,000 as you put it this morning. But the population affected goes way beyond 31,000. It's an entire spectrum that we are looking at, those who are severely sick and those who are moderately and mildly sick. But let me situate this properly. That for the health service, it has not been a reactionary response. And before I even continue, let me express the sympathy of my Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Akosombo, our Regional Director of Health Service for the Volta region, Dr. Francis Kudye, our Director of Health Public Health and Institutional Care Division, who is on the ground throughout to ensure that the interventions are being implemented. It is also appropriate to acknowledge all those who have supported us to this point. Our health workers who have been working day in, day out, 24 hours to ensure that we don't have any disease outbreak. Our surveillance officers, disease control officers, our district directors of health, our health promotion officers, our nurses, our doctors, the Ghana Medical Association, Ghana Registered Nurses and Midwifery Association, the UN group, the WHO, the Center for Disease Control. A number of people have come in to support both internal and external stakeholders. So you ask a very important question. What do we do to avert any kind of crisis? Our risk assessment that we did points to the fact that we can possibly have an escalation of waterborne diseases, especially epidemic-prone diseases like cholera. There's a country in Africa that has currently recorded cholera, and over the past 6 months, we are still struggling to fight this particular epidemic. In this situation that we have, like you rightly pointed, the water bodies are heavily contaminated and are breeding all kinds of microorganisms, from E. coli to salmonella to many other microorganisms. So if we do not put in the right intervention at this point, then we are going to have these diseases. We are also looking at vector-borne diseases, malaria. An increase in incidence in malaria would mean that there is the likelihood that pregnant women who are also affected, children under 5 who are also very vulnerable to complicated malaria, can also lose their life. We are also looking at stress-related diseases. I heard your panelists when they enumerated the property that has been lost, people's businesses, and the millions of cities that have been crushed. This imposes stress-related diseases, especially hypertension and its complications. Don't be surprised that some of them begin to suffer stroke because of very high blood pressure. So all these would have to be managed. And I can tell you that since we had our alert from VRS early on this year, by June, July, we had our simulation exercise done. We put in place our coordinating mechanism. Some of these things may appear innocuous because it is not there in the view of the public. But a lot of effort goes into it. Establishing an emergency operation center that would enable you to monitor the system throughout. And this was established with the support of the state, with the support of the Center for Disease Control, and so many other agencies. And what we are doing, first of all, let me emphasize that what stands in between us and an epidemic is water, sanitation, and hygiene protocols. So we have to sustain the delivery of safe water, safe drinking water to the people who have been cut off. At the beginning, the Abeine water pumping station was off, and water supply to close to 30,000 to 40,000 people was completely cut off. It's been restored, but some people are displaced and don't have access to this water. So we have to ensure that we provide water tankers, we provide sachet water, good quality sachet water from and with appropriate standards, because the FDA in the past few days have had to withdraw the license of some of these water producing companies around the enclave because the water they were even bagging was contaminated. So it is important that this is done. And then sanitary conditions. Is the fastest way that these diseases will spread. So mobile toilets have to be put in place and quick interventions put in place by way of providing temporary clean areas where people can live. And we shouldn't forget our women, especially those in their fertility age. We should look at their sanitary issues, young adolescents as well. Those who can provide pads should do so in areas where they can describe it appropriately. And all the hygiene protocols. We have rubbish dumped into the stagnant waters that are very offensive at this point. We shouldn't create more rubbish around these areas. So these interventions are key. I know the news cycle within the country. A week or two, we move on to the next big issue without seeing to the resolution of some of these very urgent matters. And I plead with all of us that we keep an eye on this particular case, because it's going to take about 2 months for us to get to the point of recovery. We are also doing enhanced surveillance. It is important that we find these diseases early and stop it. If you don't find it early, it can consume a lot of people. These diseases spread quick and they kill fast. So we have to ensure that we pick them up early and we put it in a system across, not only in the affected areas, because the lake runs further than where the areas that have been flooded. And this contaminated water has gone into the lake and is being carried further downstream. So all those who are downstream, we have to educate them. We have to also look out for diseases. Those who are using wells close by, we have to recognize the fact that the water table can also be contaminated at this point. So we are keeping a good surveillance on all that, on all the cases. Daily, all the cases we manage, we are monitoring it. We have our baseline data of diseases over the past 5 years, so that we ensure that any time that something at variance, then we move into from alert to action phase. Then the second thing that we ought to do, I've mentioned of enhanced surveillance, this communication and social mobilization. Let's make sure that the right information gets to them. Not information that will cause unnecessary panic and make compliance even more difficult. But the right information. In these situations, we need one command center with integrity. One command center with integrity, so that we communicate health measures to the people. Some of my health workers at the point had to flee because of the consistent rumors that the dam had broken and was flooding everybody along the way. Of course, that is the worst case scenario. But we are sure that we are not getting to that point. That when these rumors come in, it affects the short essential health service delivery. So the next thing we are looking at is case management. We know that despite all of this, we can still record cases. Our aim is to mitigate, to prevent. Therefore, we are prepared in every way. But we also respond when these cases still come up. Not so that we look at full recovery to where we have normalcy and we can deliver essential services. So we are stockpiling medication. So for every emergency situation, you mobilize what you have within the system to support. It's a disaster because you'll be the local enclave who will definitely be overwhelmed, and we need support from outside. So we've mobilized health workers, we are mobilizing medicine. Just thank your station that you're doing a wonderful job by also mobilizing to come and support. We would need more of that in the long haul because, like I said, it's going to take a while to get over this. And the final statement that I'll make is that, yes, we understand that we find ourselves in a pluralistic media environment within a democratic context. So we appreciate all the encouragement and also the critique that we get from all others. But the beauty of it is how all stakeholders have come together to ensure that we have a common objective of ending this particular plight of the affected population. The President of the Republic come to the ground. I've seen the former President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, come to the ground, asking political parties to donating. And I think that we should also focus on the things that bring us together so that we end this particular plight without losing any life. After that, we can do post-action reviews, identify the gaps so that we continue to strengthen the system. Resilient systems are very important in this case. Thank you very much.
Very well. So, we don't know when the spillage is going to end. We are just hoping, even though we can't really depend on hope, we're just hoping that the water levels will reduce in terms of the water flowing into the dam so that we can, over time, stop the spillage. We don't know when we will stop that now. But assuming we were to stop the spillage today, from what you've seen and from what you understand from the data, how long will it take for the water in the communities to recede? Will you have an idea?
We are told by the stakeholders that it will take at least a month for the water to recede. But we also know that the stagnant waters that have livestock undergoing putrefaction or decaying and that are getting more offensive and more polluted and more contaminated by the growth of microorganisms. So there's a big risk and something that we cannot wait for a month. It's been cut off from the main lake. So it's not going to recede easily. So if we could also explore the option of evacuating that water, using water tanks, pumping the water into them and discharging it elsewhere, just to facilitate it. We may be able to cut it down from about 4 weeks to a week if we are able to do this, so that the damage on property is limited, so that the health implications are also limited in so many ways.
Very well. I'm just thinking, I mean, you mentioned the fact that we have pregnant women and people in the other vulnerable groups as part of the victims. Is it possible to isolate, for example, pregnant women from the mainstream camps, so we give them special treatment, we camp them somewhere, we give them special treatment so that this doesn't go beyond the pregnant women and affect the unborn children? I don't know how that will work, but I'm just thinking, is it possible to isolate a pregnant woman and give them special treatment at a different place so that at least they will be less stressed by the situation we have at hand?
I agree with you absolutely. So as the support comes in, definitely these vulnerable populations would also have to be given some priority. So we agree that we expose the gaps, and then we let people know where and how they can support. This is one way that we can support. I'll give two other examples of support that we received from the system. The Director General Service issued a directive that anybody within the affected population should get health care for free. We've also said that all mosquito nets in our custody, we should make sure that it gets to the people. Mosquito nets get there. People are sleeping in classrooms and they can't hang it. So they are still exposed to the vagaries of the weather. One organization can also decide and come in and say, listen, we'll help you mount thousands of mosquito nets. What do you need? Ropes, plywood, just to create some temporary holding areas for these nets to be hung. So there's support that can come in so many ways. So we agree with you perfectly. The vulnerable population has to be supported, and they can be supported in many ways.
I see. Thanks so much, Doc. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We know you are in the heat of the events, and we appreciate the efforts that you and your team are putting in there. It's been 2 years or so of back-to-back disasters. We saw the work you and your team did in the COVID era. Here we are with another one, and we can really appreciate your efforts and pray that God rewards you specially as you do your best for your country. Thanks so much, Dr. Senanu Jokoto, for speaking to us. He's the Deputy Director of Health Services in the Volta region. Thanks so much. All right, so Kofi, this is the big issue. Yes.
Hello.
Yes, George.
Yeah, please. Before Kofi comes,
okay.
I've been billed to be on to touch 3 media houses concurrently, and so I'll be asking Pepe. Let me make my.
Okay, then let's finish with you let's finish with you. Yes, you have a few things to say about what has been said so far, I guess.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Doctor, let me comment Ghana Health Service and what Doctor said. The Ghana Health Service team is doing a fantastic job. They are moving from the evacuation center to one to the other and providing treatment and assessing the victims over there. That's a good job they are doing, and they are partnering us to help the victims. That's good. We appreciate that. The UN agencies have also come in for data issues. You know, when fellow Brand here was talking, he emphasized on data, and when you are working with these things, data is very, very critical, and the UN plays a major role in that. So they put a team together from UNICEF, World Food Program, IOM, and others, and they are in there collating data to help make informed decision on that, whether children, men, women, and all that, so that we can make informed decision on that. Another one, the ministerial committee's work. They've been focused on 3 areas: relief. So we want safety, relief, and then rehabilitation. That is key. People have their livelihood, as Marcelo Branches said, and so they are focused on helping these people. And I think Kofi alluded to that from the beginning. But these are the main areas that the interministerial committee is focused on. So on safety matters, where you take the victims, how is their safety, their lives, health issues, all other things that involve safety, they are looking at it. And relief, of course, we need to get them to a good place. They are eating, what they are eating, the water situation and all that. And then post the incident, the rehabilitation, whether their livelihood, whether homes, I don't know, that one they will be able to tell us what it is. And so that is also being factored in. The victims who are looking at, some people keep asking me whether there's going to be compensation. Whether there will be compensation or not, the rehabilitation angle will be able to address that. And I know PRE and other partners are discussing some of those things to ensure that post the incident, people can get back to their normal life without much difficulty. So that is one thing I want to put on record. And last one, the continuous appeal. Yesterday, Child Rights International came around and then made a donation, about 50,000 Ghana cedis. They said they want us to focus specifically on the children that have been affected. And they are talking of getting them books, bags, school uniform when they get back to school. And their health issues, the money is for the children and their health matters. And other institutions have all come in. We continue to encourage all other institutions to come in to support. We appreciate what you are doing at Citi. Today you are moving with huge things, Bankers Association, a lot of support. The Ghana solidarity, the empathy spirit, we appreciate it. Let's continue to be one people to support our people to get out of these situations. Thank you very much, Paulo.
Very well. Just a quick one. So this relief efforts that you are thanking us for, who is coordinating this? Is it the case that maybe Citi FM wants to donate, so Citi goes to the community, donates to people they feel are in need, and then come back? Another association goes. Is there a coordinated response? I mean, a place to receive those relief items so that they are onwardly distributed to areas in need.
Yes. Dr. Sanano said something. Yes, the doctor said something about a coordinated point, emergency operations center, a command post. There's a command post at Mepe, so that is the district assembly of Northton. That is where our command post is. That's where our emergency operations center is. And we are coordinating all the activities from that point. And so NADMO, DRA, and the district assembly are there, and that is where we collect all relief support, where we take it, and then we do the distribution in partnership with the assembly members, opinion leaders, and the chiefs in the area where the affected people are. So it is a very coordinated way of receiving the items.
So that is for Mepe, right? Or it's for all the areas, so that if I have something to donate to the guys at Asuchari,
individuals are not going directly to the victim to do the donation.
Okay, so if I'm an individual or a company, I want to donate to even people at Asuchari or Adan, I have to take the items all the way to Mefe, which is a command center for you guys to distribute. Is that correct? Hello, George.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so I'm asking that if I were an individual and I want to donate to my folks at Asuchari, maybe I come from that area, or Adan, I do not need to go there myself. I need to bring the items to the command center at Mefe. Then you guys will take the items where you think they are most required. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is. But if you insist those are the people you want to make the donation to, we will give you a team that will go with you to the place so that you do the proper distribution.
I see. But people also want to, like Selam rightly said, that the perception out there is that NADMO is only seen during disasters, distributing blankets here and there. In times where there is no disaster, where things are a bit normal, you know, people wonder what to do in your offices. Do we have a situation where we have developed for ourselves a national disaster response plan, for example, so that if something happens, we are not now going to be racking our brains thinking about what to do, but we have a blueprint, we can just tweak a bit and then we move into action. Do we have a thing like that?
Yes, there's a blueprint. There's the disaster plan for 2019 revised, but the revised one is not complete to be put out. And so once it's completed, we will let the public know. And so there's a blueprint. And two, we have the 3 stages of the disaster management: the pre-disaster, the disaster time, and the post-disaster. In the pre-disaster, we engage in a lot of activities: sensitization, public education, engagement, and all that. And so when there's the disaster and when it happens, that's why the simulation exercises are all pre-disaster activities that NADMO carries out. And most of these ones, we don't put it before the lenses. And so people don't get to see that we are doing certain things prior to the occurrence of a disaster. For instance, earthquake engagement. We do that. There's a committee that we work with and all that. Floods, we do and community sensitization, engagement, and identification of safe havens before the flood set in, okay? And then post, people who have been affected, how do we help them? Livelihoods gone. In some places, we make recommendations so that they go see MASLOC or other agencies to see how they can support them. Once there's a recommendation from NADMO that they've been affected by a disaster, MASLOC and co, consider them and engage, deal with them. So a lot of activities go on off the eyes of the camera, and that is what I want the public to know.
Very well. We are so grateful for your time, George AC. This indeed is a very busy time for you and your men. We wish you the very best, and we hope that we'll talk again soon. We wish you the very best. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. So this is the big issue. We're looking at the issue of the dam spillage, which has occasioned a humanitarian crisis. We are assessing the work done so far, government, private sector, philanthropists, etc., and thinking through how the affected persons could be given some relief. They are in safe havens, we call them, schools, higher grounds, just to give them a semblance of comfort. So that's what we're looking at generally. Kofi, people think that government has been slow, really. Central government has been very slow. This started on September 15. Government, or the president, this is key, was just speaking this week, And even the speech he gave, people have seen a lot of difficulties with it. Of course, I've seen explanations and defenses to that effect. But would you agree that government could have been a bit more proactive in responding to it? The committee has been set up, a lot of cabinet ministers, but that's just on paper as far as we know. No concrete work is begun on the ground as far as we know. Indeed, if something had been done, we would have known. And so now that we don't know anything, we assume that nothing much has been done. You think government has been quite sluggish in this?
Well, I would disagree, because I think government isn't just a Kufuor.
Central government.
Yeah, I know. Central government's response is not just Jubilee House responding. It is done through agencies and associations. So, for example, when you spoke to the medical doctor, he said, he mentioned Ghana Health Service. That's at the instance of the government. NADMO, that's at the instance of the government. VRA, that's at the instance of the government. So I think we have to be careful. If we separate Jubilee House or the executive from these institutions, we get it wrong. Because the executive works through agencies and institutions. And it is a fact that the agencies and institutions have been working. And Salam, I have to commend you for saying thank you to the health team. I think when these issues come, we have to disaggregate the issue and commend people where they've done well and criticize where there are lapses. Because when we lump everything together, often we lose the bigger picture. Because, for example, the health director said they've been engaging as far back as July with NADMO and VRA. VRA has come out to give us outline as far back as May. NADMO has also said they've been engaging VRA as far back as well. So clearly, central government, through these agencies, have been working to mitigate the effect. So let's look at what they have done. Where were the lapses? And how do we close these lapses going forward? So that we don't create the impression as though nothing has been done entirely. I think something has been done. For example, when it comes to a disaster, the first point of mitigation is lives. How do we ensure that we don't lose life? Fortunately for us, we've been able to ensure that in this instance, we haven't had a direct instance of loss of life. So we can attribute that to maybe some degree of preparedness and education. Now we go to the next step, loss of property, etc. Now, even that, we ask, at what degree can we save property? So, for example, houses, etc., we can't, because they are immovable structures, farms, etc. But what about the movable structures? How many of them were we able to save? Then we begin to assess the issues on the aggregation level. I think that helps us to really see the impact of the emergency agencies that we have in place, like NADMO, like the Ghana Health Service, and other agencies. I think we do a better analysis that way, and then we correct the lapses when necessary.
I see. You know, so yes, I mean, quite some good points there. But people have also said that the issue about lives is true. We've not lost any life, but it's not as if. I mean, we can't attribute that really to anything, because it was a slow process. The place was getting flooded. It wasn't like you woke up one morning and the place is flooded. The water was filling the place gradually. But before that, on the screen, some data we have in terms of the spillage. So as we stated earlier, on September 15, it started 20,000 cubic feet per second of water was spilled, right to 24th, which increased to 50,000, 6th to 9th October, 70 to 90,000 cubic feet per second, and from 11th, today is 21st, from 11th onwards, we've had about 185,000 cubic feet per second of water being spilled, and the elevation you see there is what the dam levels are, and the maximum we understand is 277.50. But as of 2 days ago, I know we are 277.36, which meant that we are just a few feet to the operational, limit, which is very dangerous, and that is where we don't want to get to. If it gets there, anything could happen. The dam could break, And once the dam breaks, then that's a major issue. So that's the data we have, at least from the VRA, that we can share with you. So it's a very serious situation, only that people think that things could have been done a bit differently and faster. But that's fine. So
I wasn't done. So okay. On the deaf issue,
yes,
we need to understand that this is a process, not an event. And a lot had to go into the process to ensure that things are mitigated. For example, I was telling you that VRA came out and said, if they even make an error, a minor error, Sukakopre Bridge will wash away. Yeah. So we need to be careful to not create the impression that the success stories in this were not thought through by people and their efforts. They were.
And the success didn't just happen. I mean,
it didn't. Success here in context. I don't want in context.
Lives,
yeah. So it is a process. Yes, there may have been lapses, and I'm choosing my words very carefully because I'm not an expert to condemn anyone or otherwise. There may have been lapses, and the evidence shows that yes, we could have done one or two things better. But I think we have to be very careful to ensure that we don't condemn outright without recognizing some of the effort that have been gone through by Ghana Health Service, NADMO, and other response agencies. Now, on the president's comment, when I first saw...
If you go there, then you
brought it up. If you don't want me to go there, I can ignore it. I can ignore it.
No, go there.
Okay. So, when I first saw the flyer going out, one from Citi and then one from TV3, I was alarmed because I saw a bit about the voting, etc. When the president started speaking, I was actually on radio. So they piped the speech through, so I was listening to bits, and then the line cut, so we just continued with our conversation. So through the interview that I saw flyers going around. Then after that, I went to find the tape. And on that particular submission, the president spoke in context. And if for time, I can read what's a bit of what he said. If you give me just 1 second.
In fact, we have the president's speech, so let's just play it.
Okay,
it's about a minute and a half or so, so we look at
the
it
speech was actually 2 minutes.
Okay, so it's about 2 minutes.
38 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we'll play it from a good place so that we can get a context. So let's hear the president speaking to the chiefs and people out there.
Because Ghanaians are having difficulties and are suffering. And it is my responsibility to try and help. Because if it's a question of counting who votes for me and who doesn't vote for me, I shouldn't be here, because you don't vote for me. But that is not my concern. And in any event, one day you will vote for me and my party.
The chief of Mefe, Togbe Kosinego, appealed to President Akufo-Addo to come to their aid.
All I'm saying is we are very happy that you are here with us today. We heard of your travel to America, and you came last night, but managed to be here with us.
All right, so these were excerpts of the president's speech. I don't know if it captured the context.
So this is where the challenge is. Because prior to this, the president had made some statement. Again, the president was speaking in context. The Honorable Jifa Gomashi had made comments to the effect that the people of Volta have been neglected because it is the people of Volta region. That is the context the president was responding to. So if you listen to what he said, when I took the oath of office as president, I took the oath of office as president for every single Ghanaian in Ghana. And of all the people in Ghana, all districts, whether they voted for me or not. Once I have taken the oath of office, I am the president of all people. When these things happen and governments act, politics does not come in at all. I took the oath of office as president to protect every citizen of Ghana, whether they voted for me or not. Once I have taken the oath, I am the president. So Tobe, I want you and your elders and the people to understand that the government is acting for all Ghanaians. And then the part you played followed. But all of these things were cut out. And then when he said that, the people started laughing, they started clapping, etc. So when you take out this critical preemptory comment and you show this, it's as if the president went there to just make that comment. But before that, he has said all of these things. But I'm grateful that the Queen Mother of Mepe has come out. I don't know if you've seen the video. The Queen Mother has come out to say that, look, when the president came, we are very satisfied with how he engaged with us. And what he said in that instance was a joke, and we all laughed about it. And we are disappointed in the media for highlighting just a small joke the president made and expressed that they are satisfied with the engagement the president had.
Very well. But did you think that that aspect, which is creating the difficulty, was a necessary part of the speech? The people are in crisis. They don't even know when this will be over. They have no idea. I mean, there are stresses, there are mental health issues, etc. And president goes there. Of all jokes, was that the appropriate forum to begin talking about you vote for me? You are president for everybody. You don't even need to say it.
You see, Salam, here's the thing. Even in crisis, sometimes we find innovative ways to cheer people up.
No, but this was making a point, and he couldn't have made it with a very serious face. You know, you make it in a way, you put your point across to you. That's what he did. And the president's a smart guy, he's a politician. So I'm saying that, was it not tone deaf?
No, it's not tone deaf.
Because the people are in crisis. They are talking about one day you will vote for me. The whole idea is about votes. And that is what creates the problem.
It can't be. It can't be. And that's what I'm saying, that the people the president addressed even have come out to say that no.
But the Queen Mother, yes, the Queen Mother would have spoken. But you expect him to be angry with the president and say the president have said that.
I expect the Queen Mother to be honest. I expect the Queen Mother to be honest. Whether the president was right or wrong, I expect a Queen Mother to be honest.
Or maybe to them, at that moment, that particular statement didn't matter because they needed help.
No,
and
the Queen Mother elaborated that when the president came and spoke to them, he gave them assurances and they are satisfied with their engagement with the president.
So couldn't the president have said all that he said without this thing you call joke about the votes matter?
You see, Salam, journalists are supposed to provide information for people to take decisions. When the video came out, a section was deliberately cut out. Yes. And I've had cause to even discuss it with the journalists, some of the journalists who put it out.
No, but we all saw it live. In fact, I was watching it live. When he got to that point, I cringed. And I asked, couldn't he have made, because it's a fantastic speech he was giving, couldn't he have finished without mentioning that part? And so I wasn't surprised that a few hours later, that was the part which was trending. So if you are a communications person, the president is a great communicator. If you're a communications person, you're going to talk, you need to know what the communication risks in what you're saying are, so that the good message you have doesn't get lost in the few lines of jokes, as you call it, you may want to pass. And that is a problem we are having.
You see, I don't discount your argument. Because to your point, when you are communicating, sometimes you deliberately avoid certain things for purposes of people misconstruing the point you are making. I don't disagree with that. The point that I'm making also is this, that sometimes when a person makes a comment and the comment is made contextually, the job of journalists is to put out the text as it is.
But in fact, why do you think it's journalists? We have social media now. A lot of the things we see, we saw them on social media.
No, actually, Selim.
Citi?
I saw Citi did it and put out Selim. Citi cut out the part that I read and they cut out the part where the people were responding with laughter and all of that. They cut all of it out and left that section and included the the flyer as well. TV3 did the same thing. The bloggers picked that information and then started spreading that information. So my point is that, and the point of the Queen Mother was that, the person spoke in a bigger context, provided details, because the thing people were concerned about was that the man is insensitive. People have needs. You are supposed to help. It is your job. So why don't you just focus on your job? Meanwhile, the speech preceding all of that had addressed it. And the moment you cut out that portion, you draw people's attention to that particular section. And it is what caused the outcry. And then people started seeing the full speech and they were like, oh, okay. You know, once people's perception and ideas are formed, it is very difficult to change them. So the issue is, that's one end of the issue. The other end of the issue is that, why do we even tribalize these issues? Why do we tribalize it? Why was it necessary for Jifa Gomashi to make the comments she made? Why is it necessary for Dafia Makpo to come out and say that Vice President donated more to Sierra Leone than he donated to Volta region? Why are these comments necessary?
But is it not important that if people in your country are struggling, you have to donate to them more?
No, but actually it's a falsehood.
But that was a government effort, right?
It was a government effort.
But I might have led it, but it was a government effort.
Yes.
But this donation was a personal
effort.
So I think that clarity
is important. But a sitting MP takes that, pushes that information out there. What perception was he creating? So assuming that we are going to even criticize the government, what are we doing about the people who are sowing seeds of division? Creating the impression that a section of Ghanaians have been ignored because of where they come from. What are we doing about it? And so I think when you take all of these things out, you lose the context and you lose the people. And you create outcry, especially when people don't have the proper context as to what the president was responding to.
Very well.
So generally, I think more has to be done. I have no issues with more being done. I have no issues with President Mahama saying that let's declare a national emergency. We must assess it. And if we must declare a national emergency...
I'll hear you on the state of emergency just for 1 minute. But let me speak to Adam, who's been quiet for a bit. Adam, so generally the president's speech, the government's response, and everything that all questions are put to Kofi and his responses to you as well. The speech, he's saying that the media and the opposition, including some of your MPs, Dafia and Gomashi, are milking it, twisting it for effect. And it was really unnecessary to bring in the vice president donating to them and comparing to what the government effort was towards the people of Sierra Leone.
Salam, I'm surprised that my brother Kofi is putting up a defense for the president's speech, especially when he mentioned the issue of vote in such a sensitive time. You know, as a leader, you ought to understand that there are times that certain things are expected of you, and one is that when you are in crisis and in giving out a response in times of crisis, it is completely reckless, completely needless to remind the people where they vote. Because among those 26,000 people, or now we are told 31,000 who have been affected, certainly there are people there who even voted for the NPP. The NPP didn't get zero in the Northern constituency. And so it doesn't really matter who the people voted for. As leader, you are the first gentleman of the land. You went to Mepe after several calls and bashing from the media and concerned Ghanaians about the government's sluggish response to the crisis. Look, I have said that apart from NADMO, that probably deserves some commendation for the proactiveness with which I saw the Director General and some of the staff, at least, they visited the area quite early and they started providing some response at the early stages, many of the government institutions that Kofi mentioned started responding only when the media and all of us started crying out that why are you not giving attention to the crisis as it ought to be?
But VRA was always on the ground.
VRA, right from day one, we have heard from the Member of Parliament and other stakeholders from the area, from the Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, who had said that the approach of the VRA was terrible. And VRA's best response was to lay blames either on the people or NADMO and other institutions. And so VRA was there.
Meteo agency.
Yeah, Meteo agency also at a point. And VRA at the time was not, VRA did nothing about the victims. It was just about assessing the impacts and then laying the blame at the doorstep of Meteo and other agencies.
But Ghana Health Service.
Ghana Health Service, no, I have been there. My point is
so
that...
the point about Ghana Health Service...
No, Ghana Health Service, I listened to Dr. Jokoto. He's a good friend. And they have been trying to do their best. But until the Member of Parliament for North Tong, Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa, started with his MP's relief caravan, where they started providing medications and some other basic health things. All that Ghana Health Service did at the point was just to station and assess the situation and then educating the people about the possible outbreak of
but that's what they should do, because I'm not sure any situation was presented.
But so the situation at the time, because you are in crisis, we could have responded in a more proactive way. For example, we know that the situation led to some stagnation of water in the community. That certainly was going to breed mosquitoes. We had the MP, assembly members, and other leaders of the community crying out for treated mosquito nets. So I think on Tuesday, I was there with another organization to do some donation of mosquito nets and some other things. And when you speak to them, in terms of their health needs, the response was not as quick as it ought to be. It was until the media came in, station, Tanker Owners Association, some BKQ Foundation, many other individuals came before the people started receiving things like treated mosquito nets and some basic medication. I know of one other company, drug manufacturing company, that went in earlier this week to provide basic drugs. And these things didn't come from the Ghana Health Service. And so, yes, they are responding as we speak, but the response was not quick. Government has been sluggish. Back to the president's statement. Look, in 2016, Selom, one of the profound statements that President Akufo-Addo made that I fell in love with was the statement. Yes, yes.
Let's hear the statement first.
That I fell in love with was the statement that Ghana needed a leader who thinks about the next generation, but not the next election.
That was a fantastic.
It was a fantastic, profound, deep.
Yeah. Okay. You know that
we need a leader.
Very fantastic.
We need a leader who thinks about the next generation. No, you see, it's not all of us that the fact that you are in NDC or MPP doesn't mean that when you hear some very good statement or profound statement from the other side, you don't acknowledge it. And so that is a very deep statement, very profound, that we needed a leader who thinks about the next generation and not the next election. But President Akufo-Addo since 2017 is a living contradiction of that statement. That even in the time of crisis, where the people cannot even imagine where their next meal was going to come from, at the time that the people don't even know how they will get their lives back to normal, at the time that their houses have been submerged, public toilets, all that have been submerged in this water, in this flood, and the entire place has become a health threat, that some people were asking for response. Others are asking that take us to Saglemi, relocate us, let's do a proper evacuation and all of these things. The president comes and in his speech, some way, somehow, vote and where the people, who the people vote for, found space in his speech. Completely needless. It is a reckless statement. We must acknowledge that. And so, when you hear MPs like the Honorable Dapa Mekpo and Honorable Jifa Gomashi reacting or responding to those statements.
No, they didn't react.
No.
They didn't react.
So maybe they started and the president responded.
They didn't react.
So what were they doing?
Jifa Gomashi didn't react.
His point is that they started it.
She started it.
No, and I'm going to.
So let me tell you. Gomashi, for example, it's always been, I think, been quite consistent on calling out the government and the president when it comes to matters of the Volta region. So
Yes.
I think I heard her say this the first time during the tidal waves.
Yes.
That
I'm just coming there. You know, Solomon, you know why? Because as we speak, we have a cabinet minister on record who sat in the studios of Asempa FM and said that when government decides to do anything about the tidal wave in the Volta region, he will lead his people to protest because the people of the Volta region don't vote for the
Which
NPP.
cabinet minister? I didn't hear that.
Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempe, it's on public record. Let your producers check.
That issue came up completely taken out of context. Please, let's find the audio and play that audio.
The audio is there. The audio is there. Then again, when you see consistently government's sluggish response to crisis in the Volta region and some other areas that are not considered their vote baskets, then the MPs who are representatives of the people, who are representing or who embody the ambitions and the aspirations of their people, are fair to call out the government and tell the government that indeed you are not being proactive because you consider us as people who don't vote for you. That's not true. I mean, the MPs are fair to make that statement because if this had happened in Ketunov, and I see this sluggish response from the government,
you say the same.
I would say same or maybe worse.
You see, Salem.
Because Salem. So I think that we need to move away from the politics of the crisis. But I'm saying that
President
Akufo-Addo needlessly called for the politicization.
No, he actually in that speech said that we shouldn't politicize.
But in the same speech, you reminded the people where they voted and all of that. No, I think that we have to do. Then issue about lives, Salem. The fact that no life was directly lost in the flood has nothing to do with the preparedness of the people. The water levels kept rising gradually, so the people left. If they were prepared, it would have reflected in the items that they were able to move out of their properties that they were able to move out of their homes. So, for example, you have homes where computers. You have homes where people actually lost money. I recall when I went to Mepe last week, the NDC constituency chairman, his house has been completely submerged in the flood, and he mentioned an amount of money. Maybe I don't have the permission. I don't have the permission to say that.
Tell us the amount in the house.
He mentioned an amount of money that he lost in the house. If they were prepared, do you think that he will leave home without taking out those valuable items? When you go, computers, fridges are floating on the water, many other properties. And so it is nothing about preparedness. It just has to do with the fact that the people will naturally, and it's natural, prioritize their life over any other property. So the moment they saw the water approaching and then the water levels rising up, they fled for their lives. And so they left those properties.
My brother, I'm not saying everything.
So it has nothing to do with preparation.
I'm not saying everything was perfect. No.
But
I'm saying that.
But what is saying that the fact that life is not lost is good enough.
And there's something very important about whether or not the response has been well coordinated. I disagree with George AEC. You see, and this is a very basic or very fundamental problem that we all have to talk about. As we speak, Citi FM is on the way to make a donation. We do not know for a fact whether the Citi FM van is going to give those items to the district assembly or they'll distribute themselves. Because when you go to the affected communities, individuals, organizations are sharing these items to the affected people themselves. Now, we are dealing with 31,000 people, the same group of people. NADMO, VRA, and the pro-government agencies have their own center. And this is bad, it's terrible.
What?
No.
Pro-government agencies?
That's what I'm saying.
So like VRA,
Ghana
Health, like
government agencies. What do you mean by pro-government?
No, you see.
You like hiding propaganda and that.
This is not propaganda.
I know.
So now, you have these agencies operating from the district assembly. You have the member of parliament, I'm speaking for North Tongue, for example. You have the member of parliament who also receives support and donation items at the Aveime Lorry Park. Usually he does that in the full glare of the public, mostly the victims. And so the moment the rice of bags, sugar and other things are donated, they have a list because he has a list of all the 20 displaced camps. And so these items are distributed. There's nothing like a warehouse where we say, okay, go and keep it in the MP's warehouse and all of that. Very transparent system. I was there on 2 occasions to experience it. I recall, for example, when the Tanker Owners Association brought the items, right there at the lorry station, the items were distributed and taken to the various camps. So the MP and his team, who are receiving donations, also the MP himself made some seed donations. He's sharing it to the victims directly. NADMO is also doing same. Now, if there is no coordination, media houses have donated. Some went to the communities themselves to do the donation. If there is no coordination, it is possible.
So the coordination could be better.
Could be better. So it is possible that Kofi, a victim, I'm just using him as an example, may receive 10 bags of rice because he may be lucky to receive it from Citi FM. He may be lucky to receive it from Edem Agbana.
He may be lucky to be at the right place at the right time in all cases.
And so in all cases, but they are added because we are told
so it has to be properly
that some of the communities we have not even been able to reach them.
The places.
They are unreachable. And so it is possible that among the 31,000 people as we speak, there are many people, some of them have not received much or have not received anything. So there's a need for it to be properly coordinated. We need to have a proper relief center, coordination center, a command center that is not political. So that if it is the MP
that is not political, which means so the assembly?
Political, yeah, political in the sense that, you see, at the local level, this is the politics of it. Almost all those items that have been distributed, and I'll use 2020 as an example. In 2020, in response to COVID, we set up COVID fund, people were making donations. These things were given to party or political party officials, especially those that belong to the government. And so, if you were contesting with an MPP person, he would have access to the items, and he was using it to, in terms of distribution, he would use that as to his political advantage. And so, as a sitting member of parliament, you also not sit there and allow relief items that come to you to be given to political parties. Yes, we have various. That's what happened in 2020. Even in Sanerugu, the candidate herself mentioned how
cost to raise that.
Yes, many other people have raised it. In 2020, it happened.
And sometimes, I don't know whether it's political.
It's political.
I can't attest.
And sometimes,
what happens? We can argue.
What happens? I think it happens across.
Yes.
What happens sometimes is where the distribution is done.
Okay.
Could be in the same constituency. You could do it anywhere, but I would choose to do it in my stronghold in the constituency.
For political gain.
So I'm saying there's deliberate to do it there.
So that's what I'm saying.
For political gain.
So if there is
done
trust,
across, I would do same.
So if there is trust, and we have proper data on all the 31,000 people that are affected, when we have a common or we have a single center, command center, then everybody puts their donation into the pool.
So are you saying that this is being done now?
No, it's cautioning against it.
I'm cautioning against it. That's how the distribution
that is happening before, so he hopes that it doesn't happen.
Certainly. I'll be very alarmed if that is.
I want to go to Salom Brandt, if you've read it.
So just to conclude, I think that we can have a better coordination system for how the items are distributed, because as we speak, there are many other communities affected who have not been able to receive anything. And then I'm also worried about the fact that we don't seem to have proper data on those who have been affected. In some reports, you hear 11 districts have been affected. In some reports, some communities are mentioned, others are not mentioned, and all of that. And if we are not careful, even in the Eastern, Ashanti, and even other parts of the Volta region, Anglon, Keta, Ketu South, and some other areas, they may not even receive any support at all, because attention may be given to only particular areas.
I've not actually been hearing a lot about Esojama, or they are not, because that's why
they're also affected.
But I hardly hear.
They are also, it even travels all the way to the northern part of
Savannah,
the country.
And that's what I was
some
saying
parts
earlier.
of Savannah.
So I think we need to.
We need some proper data.
Yes.
Then we know communities that have been affected, and then what we can do about it, because it's not only about houses being submerged. There may be people living in Sege, but whose farmlands are in Mepe also affected. So how do you locate those people as victims of the flooding? And so we need to have some proper data on all of these things, so that we can support all of them.
Very well. Salom, a lot has been said, but can you talk to me about the state of emergency, whether you think it is crucial, it's important at all for the government to declare state of emergency on this? It's quite a legal matter, but you think government must just put its acts together and help the situation, or you think that declaring a state of emergency will help marshal resources from other sources to help deal with the matter?
So I've been hearing both my brothers talk, and it's very interesting how a matter of such magnitude suddenly becomes a they say he say kind of situation. For example, one of the things that any proactive leadership would have done in a situation like this would have even been to marshal certain units of the army and especially the Navy to even help with the rescue, to even help with setting up the camps and all of that. Maybe I've not followed the news much, but I've not even heard anything about that. We have not heard anyone, let's say, from
we understand the Navy is there. The Navy, quite a few of them are there, but we don't know what numbers really. But you know, Navy, the Navy, you know, have some members there, you know, and on the lake doing a few things there. Yes, I don't know about the number you expect, but quite a few of them are there.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about when I say being there, I'm talking about them setting up. You know, like how in a war situation you would have people set
camps.
up.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Camps and even temporary transportation, because you see, we've never even seen anything like aerial footage from, let's say, areas before Kwando all the way down. Because where I hail from, where my father hails from, for example, around Amfoega side, it's also, there's a part that also borders the Volta Lake. All those areas have actually been washed out. There are areas upstream which have been washed out, all the way down to where the banana farms are, before you even get to the Tong area. So you're talking about the tributaries of of the Dai River, for example, and all those places are affected. So we have not seen or heard any kind of situation where somebody has even taken like a helicopter and aircraft, zoomed over all these areas to even begin to determine like pre and post. At this point, we should have seen some kind of analysis, maybe with satellite data, for example, showing that pre-spillage, these are the things that happen, post-spillage, these are the things that happen. Even for posterity, even for future activity, we are not seeing anything like that. And it's becoming a political blame game with people making very reckless statements all over about voting, when the matter on the ground should be, how do we fix this problem to ensure that it doesn't happen again? Because you see, we are joking with these things, and we are just offering solutions that are very temporary and going to leave all these people to their fate. And these people are going to bear the repercussions of a lot of the poor decisions we are making today. I mean, putting money at a problem or throwing money at a problem has never really been the ultimate solution, because when you are in an emergency situation like we are now, where we had not planned anything, where we had not forecasted anything, where we had not anticipated anything, all we are doing is to firefight. And unfortunately, Kofi, the government is just firefighting. Let's not mince words about it. What we are doing is just firefighting. You can even see even that when people even have things to donate right now, all of it will go to probably one or two communities, forgetting all the other communities in the region. For example, at this point, you should have thought that even the tourism ministry would take an interest because of the tourism related areas downstream that are also being affected. Knowing that tourism is one of the biggest, contributors to our GDP. And one of the reasons why some of these areas are even getting some kind of economic boom, because most of them are impoverished. So we should look at it from a multi-sectoral perspective and stop this bickering over who did what and which MCE or which this thing is doing what. We see, that's why I said that we don't have even a national disaster management or mitigation plan. In a situation like this, a situation of emergency or a declaration of emergency should have been done in certain particular districts where displaced people can be corralled, where they can even be accounted for. People are saying there are no deaths. But look, let me give you a historical context. You know, we've all heard about the history about the volcanic explosion in the city of Pompeii way back in almost 2,000 years ago, right? And people were running. In fact, there are even pictures today where you see people who were running and then got caught up in the volcanic ash and became statues. The fact that people had to leave their houses with only their clothes on shows you that they were taken by surprise. Just like the Libyan scenario that happened, was it a month or two ago, people were taken by surprise. They didn't even have time to recover even the barest essentials. There are people today who now need whole new identities because they are everything that refers to their identity as human beings are lost. We haven't even begun to look at that. We haven't seen any situation where we are saying that, okay, all these people, we are making provisions for them for new Ghana cards, for those who had birth certificates and all of that. I've not heard anything like that. We are not even thinking about a lot of the most important things these people will need within the coming months, even just to be economically active. Because after this disaster, what needs to happen is that they need to be restored. They need some kind of restoration. We are not talking about any of that. And we are fighting over, where food is supposed to go. This shows that we are not really prepared for most of the serious things that should befall any nation at this time and date and this age and this era. And I blame it on our poor leadership and our inward-looking type of leadership that we have, where at a forum like this, where we should be sober and look at some of the most important things that can help rebuild a community, a people who are an essential part of this nation, who form who are part of a very essential corridor of this particular country. We went there and we're talking about whether people should vote in the next election or not. That's completely reckless.
Thanks
and
so
there
much.
are big things we need to look at.
Very well. Thanks, Salom. Brantier, we want to take a short break. When we return, we switch topics and we look at the issue of the National Cathedral. But in the meantime, a few of your messages that have come through. Odikru Nana Kobena Atta says, government simply failed in this responsibility. Government should have done more than simulations and warning. If we couldn't manage a man-made disaster we knew was coming, then how would we be able to manage the natural ones that come unannounced? The truth is that NADMO is highly under-resourced. I think the point he's making is it was something we knew about. I mean, the spillage, we spilled it. Okay, so
but it doesn't make it a man-made disaster.
Okay,
You see, Salom, let's educate people. It was a natural phenomenon that occurred, and in trying to mitigate that phenomenon, we had to open the gates for the water to spill.
So,
that doesn't make
but
it
we can't
man-made.
say yes. But I think the point he's making is that this natural disaster like earthquakes, etc., they come unannounced.
Yeah.
But this we knew was coming.
Yeah, but we knew it was coming. On what scale?
At least from May.
No,
we knew it
on
was
what
coming.
scale, my brother? On what scale? How do you stop that degree or that amount of water?
Okay.
Let's be careful. Right. Let's not.
Elvis from Sakumone says this excess water can be treated and serve as drinking water or used for irrigation purposes. What is wrong with our people? And a few other ones. This one from Prince Henry says, I'll do this one from Prince Henry in Koforidua says that NADMO is broke simple. Nanado should stop building his needless cathedral and equip NADMO to work effectively. As we speak, NADMO is incapacitated because they don't have enough funds to rescue and support our people who are affected by the spillage of water from the Akosombo, the hashtag the big issue. That's from Prince Henry in Koforidua. We'll take a break. When we return, we will deal with the matter of the National Cathedral. Duncan Williams and Eastwood Anaba have said that they want to be part of a process that is more transparent, and they're afraid that the way things are going, they do not have the feeling that it's transparent enough, and so they resigned from the board. National Cathedral itself has responded saying that they knew that some audit was ongoing. We'll deal with that when we return. Don't go away. You're welcome back to The Big Issue. We are live on 97.3 Citi FM on Facebook as well, and obviously on Citi TV. Earlier in the week, we saw a letter of resignation from two heavyweights in the charismatic fraternity, Archbishop Duncan Williams and the Reverend Eastwood Anaba. They say that they were resigning from the National Cathedral Board because they needed an audit to help restore public confidence and trust in the project. But that doesn't appear to be the case. There is no such audit that they called for in January. And even though they truly will want to be a part of this, circumstances have made it difficult for them to be part of it, and so they were resigning. We've not seen any letter from the presidency accepting the resignation or otherwise. The letter was addressed to the presidency, but we've not seen any response from the presidency yet. Maybe it will come in the days ahead. But as it stands now, they say they are no more part of it, and the matters they cited are not pretty. So let me read a portion of the letter they sent to the president. It said, we extend our profound salutations to you in the name of Jesus Christ. As much as we have met many times over the past 2 years on the issues of national significance, you may recall our request for an appointment with you to specifically discuss the National Cathedral of Ghana, a vision of yours that we share and cherish. We truly understand that the demands of the nation and indeed the world that have been placed upon your shoulders may have prevented the realization of this meeting. Further to the National Cathedral, in January 2023, as trustees of the Board of Trustees, we submitted a draft resolution to the said board resolving the current activities advancing the construction of Ghana's National Cathedral be deferred until the findings of an audit. This deferment included a cessation of activities of the Board of Trustees, specifically our resolution that, quote, in the spirit and cause of transparency and accountability to the Ghanaian people, the current Board of Trustees of the National Cathedral shall appoint an independent accounting firm to audit all public funds contributed to the National Cathedral. The appointment of an auditor shall take place before the deferment of the activities of the Board of Trustees, unquote. Despite our prayers, best hopes, and wishes, unfortunately, a needed audit to help restore public confidence and trust in the consequential project has not been enacted to the best of our knowledge. Since 2023 January, we awaited news to no avail regarding the finding of the audit. We therefore regret, as a matter of conscience and faith, we hereby submit to you our resignation from the Board of Trustees of the Cathedral. We honorably assure you, as we assured the Board of Trustees in January 2023 with the submission of our resolution, that our action in no way impugns the vision or intent of the National Cathedral, but rather ensures that it is advanced and built on a foundation of integrity, efficiency, and quality, while garnering and maintaining public trust and support. We truly owe this to God and to country. We remain confident that one day your vision of a National Cathedral of Ghana that provides a sacred space and infrastructure for formal religious and other activities in the nation, such as the state funerals, presidential inaugural services, the global gatherings that advance faith, peace, reconciliation, stability, and a better world, while supporting tourism as a promising pillar of Ghana's economy, will be realized in our lifetime. We believe that you always stand as the visionary and the architect of this vision, and trust that the dream deferred is not a dream denied. So basically, that's the trust of what they have said. The National Cathedral Board itself has also said a number of things. It says that the attention of the Secretariat of the National Cathedral Project has been drawn to a letter addressed to the President, cited in the media before it's boldened, before board members received copies of the resignation of two of the members of the board, Archbishop Duncan Williams and Reverend Student. The reason in the letter for their resignation is said to be a lack of any information whatsoever following their January 2023 resolution calling for an audit of the National Cathedral project and a complete cessation of work on the project. First, following the presentation of their resolution to the January 2023 meeting of the board, which the board rejected, but which still found its way to the media, both Archbishop and Eastwood fully participated by Zoom in an emergency meeting the next day, 24th January 2023, to develop a press release on the issue. The press release included information on the audit, which was to be conducted by international audit firm Deloitte. 3, following this, the engagement letter for Deloitte to officially begin the audit was drafted and signed by Deloitte on March 27, 2023, and the setup on their system on May 17, 2023. The expectation was that the first part of the audit was to be completed by July 2023. The audit process so far can be confirmed with the auditors. The board was consistently updated on the process through the chairman and the steering committee, as well as the executive director's report to the meetings of the board. For instance, the executive director's report to the June 5, 2023 meeting included the following updates on the audit. Financial audit. The auditors, Deloitte, are currently in the middle of the audit and are receiving the cooperation of the Secretariat. Similarly, at the September 27, 2023 meeting, the Executive Director updated the board on the audit and included the following in this written report to the audit. Quote, delayed audit report. The audit report by Deloitte is needed to begin the fundraising campaign. Following a number of delays due to documentation, it is now hoped that the audit will be completed soon to enable fundraising to start in earnest, unquote. Although Archbishop and Reverend Stewart Anaba were not present at both the June 2023 and September 2023 meetings, they and all other board members who were not physically present at the meeting were sent copies of all the documents for the board meeting, including the Executive Director's report. The claim that they have received no information whatsoever on the audit process is therefore false. That's a nice way for big men to say you are lying. You know. But I mean, that's what they have said about that. Said it needs to be stressed that the January 2023 resolution of Archbishop and Reverend Anaba was rejected by the board on two grounds. First, their call for a complete cessation of all activity on the project until an audit was done was redundant, as the meeting already had the audit on the agenda. Second, and perhaps more critical, their resolution was rejected because of its linkage to the 2024 elections. As Archbishop Duncan Williams explained it, the National Cathedral had become, quote, a trusted weapon, unquote, in the hands of the opposition, which they intend to use as part of their 2024 election strategy. Explaining that he had seen, quote, part of the game plan, unquote, he argued that unless the board agrees to cease all work on the project until the 2024 elections, the opposition will come after each of them, create divisions in the board, and be relentless in their opposition to the project. This was rejected because of the undue politicization of the project this complete cessation would entail. So they continue to say that the Secretariat of the project was not unaware of the numerous attempts to politicize and cause disaffection for the project through fabrications and outright lies. So yes, Dr. Paul Opoku-Mensah signed that. So it appears that the National Cathedral project, keeps getting itself embroiled in controversies, and these controversies never cease. Now, top leaders of the Christian faith in Ghana are resigning from the board, and it's surely not a good sign in terms of people's confidence in the project. I'll start off with you, Kofi, because you know it's your baby. So, I mean, I don't know how the president sees this, but this clearly should be a worry to him that key actors, key members of the charismatic movement in Ghana, Archbishop Duncan Williams, Anaba, huge figures. Earlier before them, Dr. Mensa Otabo, another huge figure, Bishop Dag, huge figure, have all resigned from the committee or from the board, citing one reason or the other. If you read Bishop Dag's explosive resignation letter, for example, he raised a lot of issues about financial impropriety, contracts being given, people, and they are supposed to be the board members, and they don't know anything about those, and they are just there as board of trustees, and they don't know anything. So he felt that, you know, he did not want to breach his fiduciary duty to the board and to the people of Ghana, so it was better for him to resign. Similar things we are seeing. This should come to the president and the government as a real problem or concern.
Well, I think this should be a concern for all of us. If there is a committee and then people on the committee continue to raise issues, whether true or not, and puts the committee in the public space for interrogation. Not interrogation in the sense that analyzing what they are doing, but interrogation in a sense where it even gets to ridicule. I think it calls for concern. You see, I would like to state my personal opinion on this. My personal opinion is that perhaps we relook at the whole approach again. I fully support the building of the National Cathedral, and not just the National Cathedral. I support the building of monuments in the nation. you know, nation building for me goes beyond bread and butter. You know, there are times where we have to commit resources to develop the soul of the nation as well. The question is, how much of your resources are you going to allocate? And we can debate that. But for whatever it is, it has to be a meager portion of our resources, because majority of our resources have to go to the direct impact of the people, like schools, hospitals, etc. But I find no ill in committing a meager sum to developing national monuments, to sort of build the base and the soul of the nation. But for me, I think the approach has been saddled with too many challenges and issues. So it doesn't really hurt if we are to put a pause and re-strategize again. I would almost argue that we need to come up with a national monument strategy where the National Cathedral sits in it, and then maybe come up with a 10-year or 15-year plan on developing that national monument strategy. So we begin to identify the things that are important to us as a people, being it the cathedral, being it statues, being it libraries, being it other important monuments that are necessary for building the nation. And then we give a long time, because you don't want to contribute too much of your resources to it. And then you develop it on a gradual basis, sporadically. You don't want to also center everything in one place. Sporadically in strategic places where it even drives tourism as well. I think if we approach it that way, and we do a national consultation engagement with people, religion, religious entities, traditional entities, the youth, for example, what is important to the youth, and we come up with a broader monumental strategy, then we can execute it within 10 years or 15 years, however we find it appropriately, so that we have a national consensus around it. But as it stands, I think the national consensus, or as it stands, the consensus around the National Cathedral seems to tilt to not in favor of the project. And if you are doing such a project on a national level and people continue to raise concerns, etc., it doesn't help. So I think we need to relook at it again and see how we can bring everyone together, especially where we have already begun the process. If you go to the place, construction has already started.
And it started and it's halted now. The place is becoming weedy.
Okay, I haven't visited recently. Actually, they've barricaded the place,
but you
so you can't really see
and
inside.
people use drone shots and things to capture what's in there.
Okay, so yeah, so for me, that would be my personal take on the issue.
So it must be built, but the approach should be different.
Yes,
Do you think that the way the matter was communicated from the outset divided people on it? You know, describing it or introducing it as a personal pledge to God, and that the church was going to build it. Government was only going to provide the seed money to it. We don't know what that seed money is. Government is going to provide the land and the secretariat. You know, now later we realized that huge sums of money were being sunk into the project, and that was coming from government. The people, and that wasn't what the people were told, and so that began raising issues, certain contracts, even extending, you know, the project and the cost that came with it, etc. That started making people, you know, in fact, the sighting of it itself caused some division.
And that's where I was coming. I think the issues have been gradual, you know, because it started with when Samseladi Anyanyanini raised the issue of the location, because there were some judges who were there. Then it graduated into other challenges gradually. So, and then, you know, because I recall that when the president first launched the trustee, there weren't much issues with it. I mean, I didn't see much brouhaha in the media space until Samson did his story. And then people started asking, but why would you move a cathedral why would you move judges and put a cathedral there? Then the issue started. At least that's my recollection of what transpired.
And when David Ajay was the one unveiled as the architect, now people started asking, why is this particular gentleman the architect for almost all the big ticket projects in Ghana, the marine project, trade fair, and a lot of projects came up, and that also raised some issues.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying that it's been gradual. We've had countless issues coming up, picking up one at a time, and now we are here. And that's why I'm saying that it doesn't hurt to pause, re-strategize, reconstitute the team. I think I heard you saying that the church, I don't know if it's you who said it.
So it's part of the thing we discussed. I'm former General Secretary of the Christian Council, Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong. He said the idea that the state is funding it with the sums we are seeing is strange to him because they were told that the church was going to build it, and that was what they were doing. And so he thinks that the state should pause and let the church take over. I don't know how government sees that. But Adam, your side is not being very happy about the goings on in the construction of the National Cathedral. But it will not be bad for Ghana to have a National Cathedral with all the things we've been told, Bible Museum and things in there, so that major events could be held in it. It will add to the beauty and monuments of Ghana. Why are we so opposed to it?
So let me first issue a disclaimer before I answer your question. And the disclaimer is that I am a very committed Christian, and I am not against building a church or a place of worship for God. In fact, as a politician, one of the things I do regularly is to contribute willingly, donate towards the building of churches, mission houses, and all of that, even sometimes outside my constituency, because as a Christian, I do believe that when I give and contribute towards such projects, in return, the Lord blesses me with many more things that I want in life. So I am not against the building of a house for God or a place of worship. But having said that, Salom, this whole National Cathedral project is the biggest scandal any government, the biggest scandal since independence. It has become the biggest avenue for corruption, for people to siphon money, for people to engage in the most senseless expenditure ever with our public funds. And I am surprised that people are not outraged. People are not angry about this project. And we discuss it as if it is just one of those normal topics for us to comment about. Salom, right from day one, the project has been built on a foundation of deception and lies. And I'm surprised we want to build a house for God on deception.
Why so? Why deception?
The president told us that it was his personal project to appreciate God for what he has done for him.
But is there anything wrong with it?
And there's nothing wrong. If the president, after several years in public office, got elected into the highest office of the land, the president of the Republic of Ghana, the gateway to Africa, decides to use his personal funds, his family properties or resources to build a house for God, hallelujah, we should all worship and thank him for that. And so, right from the genesis, some of us had no problem with the president embarking on this project, if it was a personal project. And, Salom, one thing many people forget is the fact that the day the president was sworn into office, the morning before he reported to the Independence Square to be sworn in, that is when he passed by this place to cut sword, because it was something he thought he was doing, or we thought he was doing, in his personal capacity. And so nobody...
No, but how could we have thought that he was going to build it in his personal capacity?
Because that is what he said.
But he has vision.
We are supposed to believe the president when he speaks.
Yeah, but his vision is his personal vision he has for the country.
He has a personal vision, or had a personal vision, to build a national cathedral. It was never part of any of his promises that he made in 2016. And so when he says I want to build a house for God as my personal property, why not? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But he lied to the entire nation that it was supposed to be a personal property. Then all of a sudden,
Did he say a personal property?
No, a personal vision. Personal. Okay, yeah. So if it's a personal vision, if I build a church, no, but if I build a church, if I build a church, it can be a personal property. If I'm doing my personal,
but this was not a personal property, personal vision.
Away from
personal
that,
pledge actually.
He made a personal pledge. Then they told us that apart from giving land or facilitating the acquisition of land, the state, Ghana as a state, will not make any commitment of funds into the project. Then one day we woke up to the...
How about the seed money?
What they stated
or the
as...
seed money will come in the land.
No, yes, that was stated as... Because, you know, a gentleman took them to court, and then in the ruling, they said the land, the acquisition of the land, and all of those documentations is what constitutes the seed money.
Is it a Kabila case?
The Bonfair case. As we speak, we woke up one day to the news that huge sums of money from the public funds, consolidated fund, were committed to the project. And when the minister was hauled before Parliament,
it's a contingency vote.
He said it was contingency vote. My goodness. This is clearly the working of a criminal gang. That you had no. You see, some of these issues are not issues that we should be beating around the bush. That you told us that public funds will not be committed to a project. And then you pass behind us, commit millions of Ghana cedis. As we speak, $58 million have been spent on that useless project, that senseless, ridiculous project. A hole that has become the most expensive and the most useless. And we are not calling out the finance minister. We are not calling out the president, and we are accepting it as just one of those normal things.
Before Parliament.
It is not just about audit before.
Yes,
we are not angry enough. That is why they are taking us for granted.
Parliament didn't say anything wrong with the job he was doing.
You see, Salom, right from the beginning, we had very, very important buildings at where the cathedral is now being located, including the scholarship secretariat. All these buildings were relocated. As we speak, there is a company in court seeking for payment of judgment debt because their properties, they have been, they were relocated unfairly, and they are in court seeking for government to pay. And government is maybe spending hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation to this company. And so even if
hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes, we are talking about
how much dollars? How much is the project?
It is, the company is seeking. The company, there's a real estate company seeking compensation worth over $100 million.
How?
No, because they are the land, the properties, and all of that. But that is the court.
But when the court to grant you that,
so that's what I'm saying. But that is what they are seeking, and so I'm making. You and I cannot determine that here. But what is being decided, the figure is what they are seeking. No, but you see,
I can say 100 billion.
Yes,
the court will.
Of course, I get
so
that.
That is for the court. That's what I'm saying, that they are seeking.
Okay, sure.
Now, Salom, you have all this. We have land in this country, okay, at other places. All of a sudden, for whatever reason, whether it was a directive from God, whether it was whatever, we can't just comprehend how the president decided to relocate and even demolish newly built judges' bungalows.
It wasn't newly built.
Some of them have been there for a while.
Some have been refurbished. But when you say in building, in real estate, when you say new,
training institute and a few
judicial training institute has to be relocated. Several amounts or several dollars, millions of dollars to be spent relocating all this, and you find nothing wrong with the fact that of all the locations in this country, President Akufo-Addo. No, listen, President Akufo-Addo, sitting at the Jubilee House, like an Arabian king, monk, decided that this is why I want to locate my personal pledge of a cathedral. All these the president has not been fair to their country, and that is where he wanted to locate it. All these buildings have been demolished. Then you start the project, you told us our money will not be passed. As we speak, they launched a certain short code and said the churches, Ghanaians will contribute. You have even Chief Imam and other respectable, noble people in this country contributing some money to the project. But as we speak, almost all the $58 million that have been spent so far are public funds. Why are we doing this to ourselves? And that senseless, useless, ridiculous project sits there. It is the biggest scandal, the most ridiculous scandal ever. And people must be made to answer questions. Look, where we are today, We are not angry enough. Do you know what 58 million can do?
What should we do now?
But as we speak, even the contractors are demanding that government owes them $52 million. So when that is paid, we are talking about $110 million wasted in digging a pit simply because the president, who has no vision for this country, decided that in fulfillment of his personal fantasies, locate a certain building. No, because that what else can explain this? But you see, you asked a very important question about the country having monuments, and I want to get back to the point that Kofi was making.
I will take a break and
let's forget about this. You see, Kofi, don't even drag us to anything about monument. This is not going to be a monument. I have lived in Italy before, and the places, I mean, the cathedrals that attract tourists have some historical antecedent or significance that attracts the tourists. You can't just stand up and put up. There's nothing unique about that project they wanted later, that will attract. What is the history behind it? What is the history behind it? Because when you go to a city like Florence, okay, or in Italy they will say Firenze, where you have some cathedrals that attracts lots of tourists every year. The history behind it, some has to do with how the building came about, how many years they have spent building it, and all of that.
This one will be that we built it in a very short time.
This cathedral, no, a cathedral that you have supposed men of God with double identities parading. You see, this cathedral is the biggest embarrassment to the government, and I'm wondering why the media takes it so lightly. People must be prosecuted for this step.
No, the media doesn't prosecute.
This is an issue we've been discussing.
110 million gone down the drain. 110 million gone down the drain. And I'm saying that, Selom, all those on it. And I'm happy that some respectable men of God, like the Archbishop, are resigning from this thievery so that they will not be associated with it. But those who remain there, people must be prosecuted for this thievery. This is the biggest scandal, the biggest theft ever to the Republic of Ghana. And President Akufo-Addo must be ashamed of himself.
Very well.
We don't do this.
Let me take a short break. I'll come back and hear from Selom, and possibly we'll go back to the relief efforts and conclude from there. This is the big issue. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Yeah, welcome back to the big issue. We're looking at the matter of the National Cathedral. Anytime National Cathedral matters come up, the emotions are high, and we just saw that with then submission and Kofi Tonto's points he raised as well. Selom, well, I don't know how emotive you are about this, but we have started a project. My view is we have started. We must find a way of finishing. We cannot leave that place just like that, a very prime place. And so anytime I'm driving past that place, I try to envision the structure as we have it in architectural drawings there and how nice it will look and all of that. I don't know if you do that. How do we proceed with this? I know the discussion we had in many ways, but the place is there. We've sunk in money. What do we do? Do we leave it that way, or we should say, okay, church, take over. If it take you 50 years to do it, do it. State, I wash my hands from it. What should be the approach in a minute or two?
First of all, from a project management approach, if you read about the history of cathedral, no cathedral has been built in 4 years, regardless of the amount of technology that is now available. No cathedral has been built in 4 years. So, of course, right from the get-go, this was a project that was horribly thought through, horribly planned, horribly executed so far. And the repercussions are actually a monument in itself to our collective failures as a nation. To the point where you're talking about, before even anything is handed over to anybody, I also align with the calls of the clergy. Those who just resigned from the committee, that there has been a lot of factual misrepresentations with regard to the intentions of the government, especially the president and his aides, and all those who support the building of the cathedral from the presidential side. And before anything can be handed over, every cedi that was spent on this project must be accounted for. We must know where all the monies came, who the monies went to, all the subcontractors, the beneficial owners of the entities that were all contracted to do this, so that we have a very clear idea of where the money went. That should be the first thing. Without that, we cannot hand anything over. I mean, it's already been festering for over a year. It has been festering as a very giant pit, probably one of the most expensive pits in the world. And it is quite clear that, like the Tower of Babel, for instance, it was a pointless exercise. It is quite clear that if you look even all through history, every civilization that built a monument built it from a point of abundance, or from a point where they wanted to express a unique cultural opinion. So you have the Angkor Wat in Cambodia, you have the Eiffel Tower, you have the pyramids, you have all of these things that were significantly indigenous to the ideals of the population, or a local or indigenous religion. We came and wanted to import another religion, because until 150 years ago, even Christianity was not even the most dominant religion in Ghana. Through the work of missionaries, etc., it has become the most dominant religion. Oh, well and good. But then, do you as a nation then suddenly decide to do that? And if we look at even examples from across the world where governments have interfered with religion, in this case, you'd realize that right next door, we have had situations where in Côte d'Ivoire, such monuments have become a waste of money. In spite of all of this, the government still went ahead, but went ahead with government coffers, or money from government coffers, to do this. And for me, that alone in itself was one of the harbingers of all the, the ridicule that we are having. I will tell you today that if you took 10 Ghanaians and asked them whether they wanted the cathedral, I'm sure 9.5 of them would say that this is one of the most pointless things ever done by any administration in the country.
I see.
So to hand it over now to the church, what is the church going to do with it exactly?
To continue building it?
No, are they going to now take over the plan? Because you see, we forget that churches have their own burdens, churches have their own plans, churches have their own missions. And a lot of the churches, I don't think their mission will be to send very important funds needed for their own community development into a monument that has been besmirched with so much ridicule, with so much, has been tainted so badly that even right from those who head the government-led committee, whose identities are even in question, and almost, I don't know whether it's to be contempt of court or whatever, but whose identities are even the subject of criminal investigations, it makes it such that even for a Christian, an altruistic Christian, it becomes almost horrible to be part of this kind of a journey. Very especially when, if you look in the Bible, you have even Jesus Christ sacking people from the temple because they were using the temple as a place for commercial activity. So these are some of the things that we have to look at. So I even wonder whether even at this stage, it will even be prudent for the church to even take it over at its current location and in the current circumstances. So there has to be a general rethinking and probably a diversion completely from this original National Cathedral plan to something totally different, which would be more involving of the Christian community in this country, which would be a consensus-driven activity and not what we see today.
Thank you. So we've run out of time. Quick message here from Chris in Ashalibuchi. He says, I can't comprehend why government communicators continue to defend the wrongs of this government.
Who has defended it?
We all become like this?
But Selim, have I defended anything here?
No, you are different.
Yeah, so
Duncan and Eastwood have good thoughts for building of the cathedral, but folks in power want us to use it as another cash cow to steal in the name of God. Chris from Ashalibuchi. To build or not to build, just one.
So here's the thing. I think we should build it.
Okay.
I think it should be a national monument strategy over 15 years. Okay. And let's do it.
Very well.
Yeah.
To build or not to build?
Arrest all those who have been involved in this scandal first. Do a proper audit, and then let the audits inform whether a value for money audit will warrant the completion of the project.
Very well, great one. All right, so we are in the flood-affected areas. We'll be bringing you updates throughout the day. This is how we conclude today's edition of the program. My guest, Edem Agbana, former Deputy National Youth Organizer of the NDC and parliamentary candidate for the Ketunum constituency. Selom Brandt, Vice President Imani Ghana, or Imani Africa. Earlier I heard George AEC, Director Communications in ADMO, and Kofi Tonto, member of the governing MPP communication team. My name is Selam Adonu. Catch you same time next week. Have a pleasant afternoon.